All right, guys, welcome to Tagtalk, episode 10, 10th anniversary. Hooray! My code name is Elvin. I'm with my co host, Dark Phoenix, who would like to tell you a few words of wisdom.
So, as everyone know, with all current events happening, we know there's the coronavirus that happened. That people are getting better. We're actually slowly getting back towards normal life. Like I saw in Ohio, they're gonna start back. They're actually the ones that are gonna start Laser Quest first to see how it goes on. Another thing that everyone's been seeing around with all the protests and everything that's going around. I'm not gonna get into that because it's like politics. Everyone has their own opinion and so on. I just feel that as a voice and everything, we should all stick together and protest calmly and not like disrupt and stuff like that. Just true to what we believe in, and it's a matter that's really important. Lives are so much important, and everything is so valuable that it's just something I feel like we should talk about. From there on, we have a Adam, the truth, that's with us today. He's gonna stick around. We couldn't not have him while we're interviewing Corwin. For sure, we had to have Excalibur in it. So I'll let you lead the way.
Yeah, so I just want I'm not going to be here the whole time. I wanted to just pop in, kind of deliver a message, kind of just speak on behalf of the LQ community and stuff like that to Corwin, and I hope that I'm a decent ambassador for it. But I wanted to take a few moments just to say, thanks for everything that you've done, not just for me personally, but like for the game of Laser Quest. You truly are, in my opinion, not only the greatest player, but like the legend of the game. So I think people need to understand how many people you've had an impact on. How many players have come on here and said, "I modeled myself after Corwin," or "Corwin was the first really great player that I saw," or I modeled the person that I am after Corwin. So I just wanted to come on here, and kind of say say from the community what you've meant. I feel like you above everyone else in the community deserve to have kind of their kudos. And I know this isn't going to be your thing. I know you're not a guy who likes to brag about himself. You're not me. So you don't like to make lists. You don't like to do that type of stuff. So I think that this is going to be something that's going to be difficult at times for you, maybe a little bit uncomfortable. But it's something that the community is desperately, desperately needing. You are probably the most respected person, ever to play LQ. So you taking the time to sit down with these folks that have put so much effort into it and everything like that is going to be absolutely, absolutely a joy to watch.
Awesome. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Well said. So here it is. We have this is how important this podcast is. We basically have a special guest to introduce our special guest. So this is what it's going to be, and this is going to be a good one. It's going to be super interesting to hear from your perspective, and a little bit like we discussed before. Like this podcast and what we've been doing is really a celebration of people's careers. It's just fun to hear and reminisce and hear about like everybody's unique perspective about Laser Quest. And you have such a history with laser tag and with Laser Quest, and you've played so many tournaments. Adam, yes?
Let me frame this up for 1 second, and then I'm going to get off. So you got the guys that the person you're about to sit down and speak to started playing his first NAC in 1996. He played his last NAC in 2012. He won a WLC in 2019. So that is literally 23 years of being the elite. Being the best of the best. 4 NAC championships across 3 different teams. Never been done before. More regionals than I think anybody else. This is literally the most decorated player, the greatest player, the most accomplished player in the history of LQ. So enjoy, and I am out of here.
See you,
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome.
So let's start. Like you said, I think you are the player that has the most success and the longest longevity in the game, meaning that you started earlier than most of us, and you've won so many titles and stuff. So we're gonna get into it. What I liked about this podcast is that there's so many people that I knew. Even Elvin, when I listened to his podcast, it's stuff that I knew about him, but there's stuff that you forget or stuff that you don't know about the early ages, right? So like I know him as from when I started to know him. I don't know anything before that, and I've learned so many stuff off people that I personally know a little bit, and then so on. So that's what's really cool about it. So we're gonna get to it. When did you start? Like your early years? What made you start playing LQ, and get you actually? Was it your first laser tag laser quest?
Yeah, Laser Quest was my first laser tag system. I started playing, I think in like 1995. I think you were 3 at the time, and literally, right? And basically, it was like my last year of high school. A buddy of mine, one of my classmates, his name is Scott. His code name is Spotlight. Was telling me about this, this laser tag system that he just came across. And back then in 1995, we didn't have social networking, we didn't have social media or anything like that. So you wouldn't. And Laser Quest is really kind of throughout the years known for its the experience that it gave to its players and the people that played it, and it's just really word of mouth. So he's just telling me about this, and he's like, yeah, there's this thing called Laser Quest, and they have members nights, and they've got they're going to be doing a tournament. Should try it out. And this was at around, I think it was around May, June, around this time 25 years ago. And so I was like, I didn't really think too much about it, but he kept, he was telling me there's other people that were in my class that were also, playing it as well. And it's okay, I'll give it a try. And so I went out, and I didn't play members night or anything. I just, he brought me out, and we played a game. I got to meet the the management team there, and I went in and I played, and I didn't come negatives, which is good. And I was like, after that, I was hooked. It was a lot of fun, and it was one of those things where, like you can, your first time in an arena, you could smell, like your senses are heightened, right? So you could smell the fog, you can smell, it was a pretty new center at the time. You could smell like the wood, everything, right? So I still remember to this day, like what everything kind of looked like in Brampton. It was in Brampton,
Brampton,
that we went and played. Yeah. And so I really I was hooked. I played, I enjoyed it. And then from there on in, I started, going in, I started playing like Ironmans, right? They had, they were running Ironmans at that time. And it was really, really busy. I remember my first members night. It was like, you had to, like, if members night started at 7, you had to, pick up the phone and dial and call them at like 4 o'clock to reserve a spot, because there were so many people there. I think they only had like 30 packs. And so they basically had to break it into 2 members nights, right? And it is alternated back and forth. There were people that are just basically, the members were like lining up outside the door and around the corner, just to sign up, and others, and if you didn't call in time, then basically you wouldn't be able to get in. So you would have to go into the next members night. But I remember, like, it was just, just going there and meeting all of these people that they somehow found out about Laser Quest, like by word of mouth. And they were really good. Well, at the time when I was playing against them, they were really good. And it was just, they were playing different specialty games. The first game I remember was like, they would play like a frantic game, and the winner of that game, we get like a pizza. So they were really into like promoting the members base back then. In other games, if the winner of that game, you would get like a sweatshirt. So Laser Quest had like sweatshirts and Laser Quest on the front. So like it'd be stuff like that they would give out, like just prizes to the members, and 2-for-1 passes and free games and stuff. So it was really, their focus wasn't really about, at the time, just get them in, play the minutes, and get them out. It was just really kind of creating that experience for anybody that came in and gave you and really give you a really good time, and just in that level of enjoyment, so that you can go back and tell your friends about it, and then that's how they became popular back then. And I think for many years after that, I mean, that was basically their strategy and how they promoted their business. They would never go out and advertise. They would basically, they didn't, like I said, they didn't have social media back at the time, and it was just really anybody. It's just walk-ins. There's walk-in business that they were very profitable on, and and it was a really good business model that they had at the time. So playing that members night, and getting to know everybody, I got destroyed. I didn't like it. There was a lot of good players there, and Spotlight Scott, the guy that got me into there, he was one of the top members there at the time. And just really kind of seeing how these guys played, it was it was unreal. I didn't realize that, I thought you just shoot and, the targets went down and that was it. But there was so much more to it at the time. And the players are just, they had different dance moves. They had different ways and how they were kind of, trying to tag each other down. And in Brampton, it was a very closed arena, especially in the towers, right? So in, laser tag back then, there was a lot of dogfighting. So not a lot of sniping because you didn't really have the range to be able to do that. So it was like a grunge fest. You would go in there into the tower and you would just dance and tag fronts and backs and I like it. It give you a really good workout at the time. And even to this day too, right? It was a pretty good from a fitness standpoint to really kind of stay in shape. Yep. So that was kind of my first experience in 1995. Shortly thereafter they had tryouts for the NACs. The first NACs was in London. I was still too new at the time, but they basically Brampton sent 2 teams to London. Okay. I think they were called like the
General and Wildfires.
The Generals and the Wildfires. Yeah. Yes. So basically, both of them, they were both led by crew members. So both of those, both of the guys that were kind of leading those teams were, managers or staff members at the time. So they basically took a team out and they competed at the first NACs. And then after that, a lot of the guys are coming back. I don't think Scott was a part of that, but there's some other guys. There's another guy. His name was Style. He was a part of that. They were telling us that, like Oshawa also was there at the time. They won the first NACs, and I think both Brampton teams came second and third. Yeah. And then like from there, there weren't a lot of competitive teams. I think the majority of the teams there were made up of, people from home office, staff members. So it was just kind of like their inaugural, kick at this tournament to see what kind of attention it would draw from a member's standpoint. And from the stuff that I heard, from the guys that were at that tournament when they came back, it was they couldn't. It was an amazing. They said that it was an amazing experience. Just the way that everything was kind of set up, and they were kind of getting ready for the next year. If they were going to run one, we didn't know at the time if they were going to run another NACs, but eventually they did. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What time? How old were you at that time?
20.
Oh yeah.
25 years ago. So yeah, I was about 20 at the time. Yeah.
And as a controversial, we all know your name wasn't Corwin at the time. Yeah. Did you always start it with Carnage, or did you have another name when you started playing?
So code names were that's an interesting one. So when I bought my membership, they asked me, well, what's your code name? I was like, what do you mean? Right. and they were like, what's your, like name do you want to go with? Right. And it's like, I don't know. Right. So I said, just pick one for me. Right. And they chose Pocket Lint. My code name was Pocket Lint for at least the first year of playing. And it was just, and it wasn't like the best code name. I eventually changed it, but it was Pocket Lint for a long, long time. Here's an interesting story. So when I changed my codename to Carnage, it was basically inspired by Oshawa, actually. Okay. So, just to kind of go back to 1995, like, continuing to play and, going to members nights and back then, it was kind of a welcoming type of community, but it was more of kind of an elitist type of community as well, right? So you had to really prove yourself back then. So you would go into a members night, you would absolutely get destroyed. And then you'd have to try to figure out, okay, a couple of guys would come out and say, okay, try this, but it wasn't, you weren't kind of like in with with the crowd, right? They had their teams, they had their circles, and I'm just coming in trying to learn this thing. And so you really had to, you really had to like come back and learn and figure out, what it is that you needed to do and to get better. Right. So, so it was just members night over members night, just practicing and trying different things, coming in like, during the week and, playing against, non-members, but, just trying different things is what helped me to get a little bit better, to the point where, Pocket Lint was now competitive. One of the things that I, did, and I'm talking a little bit about Oshawa, is that, I learned from NAC that there were other centers around, right? And it's like, wow, there's members from other places. And so I decided to take a trip to Oshawa one time by myself to check it out. And if anyone's ever been to Oshawa, it's like, they say Oshawa is kind of like the armpit of Ontario. It literally it is, right? So you go down there, it's off a street called Bond Street. And it's like a really rundown building. Yeah, I think there's like a dance club in the basement. And when you walk in, it's not like any type of Laser Quest that you've ever seen. Everything's
so
run down.
It's so dark.
It's dark. It's grungy. Yeah. And the first thing that you see when you walk in is like all these code names that were on the wall, kind of like under the black light. And that was Team Oshawa, right? So you had like Death and Apocalypse and Dog and Lamb Chop and Smoke. And I was like, man, holy cow, these guys, like, they wouldn't let us use these types of code names in the corporate world. But I mean, these guys are using like some crazy code names, right? So I went there and, there are members there. They're there all the time. Right. And I decided to play in the game, and, I played a couple games, and it was just eye opening playing these guys. And, I did pretty good. I came out and, and I think Lamb Chop, he came up to me. He was working there at the time, and he was like, who are you? Where are you from? And I told him, and that's how I got to know the Oshawa guys. And he was like, you know what, we got some all-nighters. You should come out and, play with us. We're a competitive team. We play in tournaments. We won a championship, not too long ago. Should just kind of play with them. So they were really welcoming. And I was like, yeah, cool, no problem. And then just from there, I saw the code names and everything, and it got me intimidated, right? And I didn't want to like go in this Pocket Lint, right? But I actually did. So from there, I decided, okay, I got to change my code name. I can't go around as Pocket Lint. So, and that's where, I know that, I did a little, I was in the comics a little bit, and, Carnage, right? And I decided to, go with that name. And that was it. It was like basically in it was like early 2016, I would say, is when I got my code name changed.
Wait, 1996, you mean?
1996, you mean? 2016.
1996. Oh my god.
Wow, 2016 would be a couple years ago.
1996. Yeah.
So from there, you said you played with the Oshawa guys. When did you get in competitively, like going to side tournaments and actually getting better and so on? Did you continue playing with the Oshawa guys, or did you like get back to Brampton and get them competitive and so on?
Well, it's interesting. So they had lock-ins. So it's the only competitive scene at the time were hosted by like Oshawa, right? They would have like mini overnight tournaments, like draft tournaments, right? So they would invite, and they would mainly do it for their team, right? And they would welcome anybody that would go out there, or at least, heard about them. And, some of the Toronto East guys, like Conan was Hunter, some players, that used to play for Toronto East knew about Oshawa. They were pretty close with them. So, they would go out there, and then, I went out there, just my first time kind of getting to know them. And, and when they were telling me about the, all-nighters and tournaments that they were running, I decided to start, showing up to those, right? And it was like playing at Oshawa and, learning from these guys. And, it was like going to like a boot camp. And it's like, it's because you just grind it out, and it was all team games. They didn't play really any specialty games when they ran these tournaments. They'll give you little prizes, or they'll give you like a free all-nighter or whatever if your team won. And that's kind of like how they had their kind of thing set up, and that's how they, stayed competitive, at least amongst themselves. I remember one time, I went back, right, and went to Brampton. I was telling, some of the guys there, the members about, what Oshawa was like, and they're like, we should go down there. Let's jump in the car, and let's drive over to Oshawa and play their team, right? And so I was like, okay, let's go. Let's just pick a night, like go Friday night, and let's go, right? So on Friday night, we decided we all jumped in our cars, right? And we drove all the way there. And we walked into the center, and their A team wasn't there, but their B team was there. Okay. So they had two teams there. So their B team was there, and I think they're just kind of hanging out, like on the upstairs of Oshawa. There's kind of like an area where they can play poker or whatever. They're playing cards and stuff, right? And so they heard that we were in the area. Or we came into the center, and they came down. It's like, yeah, let's play a couple games, right? So we went in and we played a team game, and we beat them.
Nice,
right? We beat them. It was close. We beat them, and they were like, yeah, let's after that they were like shocked. They're like, who are these guys, and how did they beat us, right?
In their center, right?
Yeah, in their own center, right? And so they were like, let's play again. And then you could see one of the guys were calling, like they're making phone calls, trying to get the A team guys in there, right? And I think in the second game we played them again, and we beat them again, but it was much closer. Right. Okay. And then after that, there's let's keep playing. It's like, we'll give you free games. And then it was like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of here. It's fun, but let's take off. Right. And as we left, I found out that the A team guys started to show up. And so where are they? So they left. Right. So that was kind of like our first glimpse of center to center competition. Yeah. Right. They were kind of like our first rivals. And they in our next members night, I think it was like a couple weeks later, like their entire A team showed up at our next members night, and they're like all of them, every single one of them, right? And we were like sitting there, and it's like they were like, yeah, let's play a game, let's play a team game. I was like, sure, okay, let's do it, right? And so it was our full team. Like we were getting ready for the 1996 NACs. So we kind of like had a team. We went through tryouts. We already had our team kind of in place, and they brought their team as well, their A team, and so we went basically head to head, 9-on-9, and they absolutely destroyed us. Oh, wow. I think the score was like 10,000 to like 5,000 something.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like, okay, it was a very humbling experience. Yeah.
I have a question though. So this is obviously the Brampton team that you would bring to regionals 96, correct?
96 we didn't have regionals. It was basically we went straight into NACs. Yeah.
Okay. So who was on your team that played that Oshawa team? Is there any names that we recognize? Spotlight, I guess.
Spotlight for sure. I don't like. There's a guy named Slash. Style was on our team at the time. Profile. There's another guy named Profile. He was on our team. I think Hunter played for us that year. There's a couple Laser. There's a couple of other players, but not like Adam was supposed to be on the team, but I think that he had like a baseball tournament or something that he had.
Probably super young too.
And yeah, I'll tell you a bit about Adam, like when I first met him. But so there's probably a lot of players that you guys don't even, you guys might not even recognize or know their names, right? Like they stopped playing pretty much after 96.
Got it.
This was even before Jamie's time.
Wow.
Yeah. So some of them are really good, and so when we played them, it was like they just absolutely, it was just they had a lot of raw talent, and I wouldn't say that their teamwork was like they had like amazing teamwork. It was just their talent, their ability to go one-on-one with you, was just at a completely different level. And I know that there's a lot of kind of perceptions about Oshawa and how they play, and for sure, like in the later years and whatnot. But at the time, they're a pretty clean team. Okay. They're very aggressive. They're dog fighters, right? But they never really, got into like when they played kind of like outside of their center. In the early years, they played clean, right? They didn't like run into you or anything like that.
Yeah. Nice. So before we get into the later NACs and all, when did you start traveling to go to like tournaments and all? Was it regionals or NAC directly, or were there small tournaments that you traveled in between?
I think NAC was my first tournament. And then like 96 was my first NAC, like my first corporate tournament. Yep. My first side tournament, it was probably closer to 97. and it was Michigan. It was a Michigan 3-man, and somehow I guess I think they, we had like the alt.sport laser tag thing going on back then, and at the time it was basically just filled with just photon players, right? It was everybody was playing photon. I mean, that's what it was all about, right? It wasn't really, every so often you'll catch like Malice kind of typing, writing something about laser quest, and you kind of get your attention. So okay, so there are people within our system that are on this thing, but mostly you'd have to kind of like filter through to see if there's anything specific about Laser Quest. And I remember I found out about this Michigan 3-man tournament by someone just randomly advertising, saying, hey, we got a 3-man tournament on this weekend. Let's if there's anyone that's interested in wanting to come out and play it, come on out. And so we had to we had to find the address to Michigan, and eventually I think the team, we got a 3-man team. It was myself, it was Spotlight, and Blair started playing. So me, Spotlight, Blair, we went down there and we played the tournament. It was during the day too, right? So it wasn't like an all-nighter or anything like that. It was like in the afternoon. So we went there, we played, and it was the first time I got to meet Nova. Nova was there. We won that tournament, but there was nobody there. It was just local kind of, just non-members, just a couple members here and there. But that was my first kind of like side tournament that I got a chance to play. And tournaments were hard to find, come around like back in the day, just because it was hard to get that information out to, other centers. If you want to run a tournament, it would be locally within your own center. And if you wanted to get like some, international representation, or if you wanted to kind of extend to other groups or other players or other centers, you either had to fax your tournament to all the centers, and then the center would they would print it, and it would just post it up onto their members wall. Now that's how it was kind of done back then, right? So eventually it got to the point where like when VDM came out, right, it was like they were just faxing like all the centers the tournament, the date, what it was, the format and everything, and then it would be up to the centers if they wanted to put it up on their members wall. That's how we kind of found out about all these other tournaments that started popping up. And then obviously NACs was something that was corporately run, so they would have those things kind of going on, and I remember like kind of every members night we would go to see, okay, what's new, right? What new tournament is going to be coming up. But back then, like 2006, 2007, there weren't a ton of tournaments, side tournaments, other than NACs.
97, not 2006.
96. Did I say? Oh, in 2006. 96, 97, there weren't a lot of tournaments. There weren't a lot of tournaments out there.
Makes sense. So you played afterwards with NAC with Brampton, I guess, up until 99. Right.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to talk about the NACs, like how you met Adam and stuff like that, before we get into your 99 NAC?
I think I met Adam in 2006 and
96.
2006.
96.
Yep.
Give me 1 second. Let me just drink some caffeine here.
Cheers.
Cheers. I met Adam in 1996.
Yes.
He must have been like 10 or 11 at the time.
Wow.
A little guy, right? Like when he wore a pack, like the pack literally dragged on the ground, with him, right? So I mean, this is Adam was the guy that qualified. Like he tried out and he made the 96 team, and I got to become really good friends with his dad, Steve Tarhill. And he was just telling me about how Adam was really competitive. He played baseball, he's played hockey. This is something that he would do with Adam, kind of like a side thing, just kind of like that bonding thing. And he was naturally from the very beginning, Adam was pretty good. Like you could see that the potential was there.
Right.
And it didn't take him very long to get him to a point where he was, just really he just leapfrogged above everybody else. But yeah, in 1996, we did tryouts. Adam qualified for the 96 NAC team. and like I said, he couldn't go because I think there was like he had to go to a baseball tournament. So we had to pick up some players from I think that's where we picked up Hunter from Toronto East.
Okay.
And so he played on our team that year, and so he was like basically one of the first members or the guys that I've met that till this day I still I still talk to him, that still continues to play. Yeah, I like Blair. I think I met him closer to 97, and again, he was everybody was so young back then. It's crazy, right? Yeah. And he also, I don't think he was on our 97 team. He was just starting. I remember that. And but he was always going to he was always playing games. He was always at the center. I don't think he had a car at the time, so he would be walking back and forth from home to the center. And I think he lived 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 kilometers away. So that's just every day, right? And he would he was very dedicated. He would be at the center practicing, trying new things, trying to get better. But I think it's in 97, when we did tryouts, I think we had, 2 teams. 2 teams? Yeah, I think we had 2 teams in Brampton. I think Brampton sent 2 teams. Or no, Brampton sent a team, and then and we didn't have enough for a second team, and that second team ended up, I think, playing for Richmond Hill.
Okay.
Which is the team that I think Blair ended up playing on that year in 97. Yeah. And then that tournament was so do you want me to talk about tryouts for 97 and how that came about?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So it was the longest tryout that I've ever been a part of throughout all the years of Laser Quest, at least, and anything really. The tryouts lasted 4 or 5 months, and basically what they did was they based it on members nights. So in Brampton, on our members terminal, I know there's a lot of centers. They rank and you accumulate points over X amount of games, 20 games or something like that, right? So that you'll see on the members terminal, some people they've got 1,000 points or whatever, right? And in other centers, they all games are ranked, right? So they don't ever shut it off. Even you go in a public game, the public game's ranked, so you continue to get points. In Brampton, they only ranked your top 5 games, and the only time the games are ranked are on members nights. So you couldn't come in on on a Wednesday night, a non-members night, play a game, use your key, and get points. You would get nothing, right? So basically, it was it was your top 5 games. You would maybe do 2 members nights in a month, maybe play 7, 8, 9 games, and your top 5 games would count towards the members terminal. So it was very competitive, and you did it. And I kind of liked it the way that they did it that way, and it really helped. Kind of, you didn't have to kind of sandbag your points by going to an Ironman game members and just accumulate all these points, right? You have to play against other members on the members night, to do well. So the way that they did tryouts in 97 was they basically, over the course of 4 or 5 months. They ran members nights, right? If there's anybody that was interested in trying out for NAC, and they would basically take the top 2 members, that month, at the end of that month, and they would be on the team.
Okay.
So the first month would be me and Spotlight, right? And then the next month would be Adam and somebody else, right? I can't remember the whole team. So until you get your 10 players, right? And I think that year we had Oshawa guys play with us too. We had Lamp Chop and Merv play for us that year. So they had to go through that process as well. So they had to come into members nights, they had to play, they had to come in the top 2, right? And there's a roll down here. So if I was number 1 and I already qualified, they would just go to the next person, right? So so they had to go through that process as well, and until we finally got our team. So it was a long, drawn out process. To put this team together, and the thing that we in hindsight that we kind of realized is that by the time we had the team together, that was the team, and we're like maybe a month or two away from
You had
NEC.
practice.
So we never had a chance to practice. It was just this competition. It was just this drive to try to get onto the team. So we didn't really get a chance to practice. I think we scrimmaged with London, and that was basically it. And but then from there, we went to NACs, and NACs was, I think it had like 27 teams, and then back then, it was 15-minute games. You played prelims are 3 games. You played 3 games, and then they were 15-minute games, and you go straight into the playoffs. And playoffs was 15-minute game, and then you go into finals, and then finals was like a Ironman. It was like a half an hour
30-minute game. Yeah.
Same thing in '96. It was the same thing. We made it in '96. We made it into finals. We came 3rd that year. And the way that it's interesting, the way that they did it in '96, the half an hour game, was between us, Oshawa, and I think London was in the finals in '96. And basically it was a free for all. You just go into the airlock, you grab a pack. And that was it. You got your pack, right? And you could see Oshawa was like, they're just running into the airlock, and London, obviously they know their packs, and we were kind of like the last going into there, but that's how it was done. And then you play 30 minutes. I think it was like a 30-minute frantic.
That's crazy.
And then that was it, right? There was no pack rotation. You played, 30 minutes straight up, and then whoever won, right? And I think we came third. I think we came 3rd that year. In '97, I don't know exactly. We weren't in finals. We got disqualified.
You got DQ'd. Yeah.
I saw Adam's.
Yeah, he talked about it.
He talked about that, right? Yeah, we got DQ'd, but from what I understand, in '97, it was a little bit better. I think they gave you pulled numbers out of a hat, so it was a little bit more structured as opposed to like the free for all. But definitely there was opportunities with that, and and it may not have been like in packs. There was a lot of pack variance back then, so it may not have been the most fairest way to determine the winning team.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about NAC '99. So you moved out of Brampton to go study, if I understood right, to Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Or to work? Yep.
Yeah.
So then you played on the Phoenix team and won your first NAC with them in '99.
Yeah.
So let's elaborate on that. How was the feeling coming to a new team and so on?
Okay, so we'll go back to the beginning of that. So yeah, I was going into the school that I was going to was an American school, and they didn't offer. I was in a degree program, and they didn't offer degrees in Canada. You'd actually had to go into the United States to one of their institutions to complete the final, semester, and then you'll be able to get your degree, right? So probably like back in 1998, I was already kind of like scoping out different areas, different institutions, places that had the highest job placement success rates, and Arizona was amongst the top. Right. So we in '98, I think we went down there, and and just me, my parents, and a buddy of mine, we went down there and just to kind of check it out and talk to the the faculty and just to get a little bit of understanding, and they did a little bit of orientation, and that's basically the decision was to complete my degree in Arizona and Phoenix, when I was getting into my last trimester. Right. So in '99, and back then, it was like I drove down, right? So so I'll tell you a funny story. So it was in the like February, March timeframe. I'm like I drew like the car that I drove back then was like a 1992 Pontiac Sunbird. A black Pontiac Sunbird, right? And I decided, okay, and I'm let's drive down. And I didn't think that I would be able to kind of drive down on my own. It's pretty far away. It's about 3,000 kilometers away. I got a chat. I met Jamie right back in '97. and we became pretty good friends. And Jamie, volunteered. Like he offered to, I'll drive down with you, right? And so I think on a Wednesday night, I went to his house. I packed everything up. I went to his house, picked him up, and he comes out with this big, huge suitcase, bigger than mine. And I'm going to live there, right? I said, Jamie, what are you doing? Like, he's like, this is my stuff. I was like, Jamie, you're just going to be there for a couple of days, right? So it's a big suitcase. He packs heavy, right? So, and then he also had this little bag, right? And back then, we didn't have like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. We didn't have podcast. We didn't have iPods or anything like that. I had like the only thing I had in my car was a cassette tape. So basically, so Jamie has this bag that's full of cassette tapes, right? And they're all Metallica tapes, and some of them are like the same tapes. And so basically, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be fun, right? And so basically, he loaded everything into my car, right, on top of everything that I'd already had, and we just drove down. And it was funny, right, because he really likes Metallica, and so when it was his turn to drive, like he'd be playing it, right, and the song would end, and then you had to hit rewind on the cassette tape, so there was about 2 minutes of silence until it gets to the beginning of the song, and it would play again. It was like that for all the way until we got to Tulsa.
Wow.
Right. So we drove down. We got down to Tulsa. It was about the halfway point. Right. It took about maybe 20 hours to get to Tulsa. We met up with Irishmen. He took us out to dinner, and we stayed at his house overnight because there's no way that we're going to continue to do this. Drive all the way to Arizona from there. So we stayed at his house, and in the morning we started up again, and in the States, there's this interstate called I-40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This interstate, you can see it from outer space. When we got into I-40, I didn't realize how long this interstate was. Brutal. Again, back then, we didn't have Google Maps or anything like that, right? It's like I had to go to a travel center, and it would give me this book, right? And they would draw highlighted lines on this book, and you just follow it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. And that's how it was back then, right? So you had to be very careful. Like there's no, things wouldn't be telling you, okay, you got to turn here or anything like that. You literally had to pay attention as to, where you're going. If you miss a stop, then you're lost.
Yep.
When they were kind of drawing out I-40, and it was like 4 or 5 pages of I-40 that they're taking this highlighter and drawing it across. I thought they were, I thought they were joking.
Yeah.
Right. But when we finally got into I-40, half of our trip, we were driving on I-40 for 20 hours. Yeah, literally, it's just New Mexico, and you're crossing, you cross all the way into the Flagstaff. And then, so after about 20 hours, it was the most boringest drive ever. There's this desert everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing. And it was a grind. It was a grind to get through that. But by the time we got into Flagstaff, there was snow. And it was we're in Arizona. How can there be snow? Right? And it's we're elevated, right? Really up high, right? And where Arizona is, where Phoenix is, it's you kind of you're from Flagstaff, you kind of go down this hill, and it's kind of like a melting pot, right? So you go right down this hill into a crater almost, and that's the city of Arizona, or the that's Phoenix is there, and you got Mesa, but everything is there, and then you could see the temperature rises pretty significantly compared to when you're in an altitude at Flagstaff, all the way down, and that's when I started having problems with my car.
Oh shit!
Wow.
I realized that kind of living in Canada, and it's winter, right? You don't realize that there's a problem with your radiator, and it tends to overheat, right? Because the temperatures are never really that hot, right? Yeah. But I kind of experienced that going into Phoenix, and it's oh my gosh, the temperature was starting to you see smoke coming out of the front of my car, and it's what the heck is going on, right? And I realized that there was something wrong with my radiator. It couldn't keep the engine cold enough. All right, so I ended up having to fix that. I had to turn I had to roll the windows down, and I turned the heat up, and that was my way of being able to keep the engine cool enough to be able to drive. So that was basically, that's anywhere I ever went in Phoenix. In my car, that's how I had to drive. I had to turn the heat up and roll the windows down. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to get anywhere with the car without the car like stalling on me. Yeah. Yeah. I should have. I don't. Yeah, exactly. So that was our trip to Phoenix, and then I think that weekend there was like Mesa had like a mixer. They had like they had a mixer, and there's a lot of people there. Like Vince was there, Frozen Shade was there. There's a lot of players from out of town that were there, and we got to play in that mixer, and it was a lot of fun. Jamie stayed for a few more days, and then he kind of flew back with this huge luggage. Yeah.
And all of his cassette tapes.
What's that?
All of his cassette tapes.
Everything and all his cassette tapes. Just Jamie, take them with you. Yeah.
So how is it joining a new team? Going to Phoenix and playing with them and all.
Well, kind of getting down there. I was at the time. I was pretty good. As a player up in the north, right? So kind of coming down there, and I knew about Phoenix. Like they were all over the news groups, like every single one of them. They were so active. On the news groups, like every single one of their players, there wasn't one player that wasn't active, like their whole team. So, and I think the year before they came second, they went to, in 98, they came second to Houston. So they were already kind of establishing their dominance in the scene. They did really well in 97 as well. They won a couple of side tournaments, as a team. I think they won best of the best of the West, best of the best, I think. And so I kind of knew that, there were a lot better players kind of around in other areas. So, when they had their tryouts, I wasn't sure what to expect. I think it was over 2 days, but man, like I didn't do good at all. Right. And, once tryouts were done, I think I came in 9th, the last spot.
Really? Yeah.
And it was a very humbling experience, just because of just the raw talent that team had. And, the way that they played was completely different than what I was used to, playing up north. They weren't, like just your hardcore dogfighters. They were so accurate. Their packs really sucked, and I guess that really helped, right? So to be able to tag those, you had to be really accurate, and playing in those tryouts was like I said, it was a very humbling experience, and but I learned a lot. I learned a lot from those guys, and I was happy to be able to play in that team, to represent that team, and going into regionals, I think we went to Calgary. We went there, and we won that tournament, and I think Calgary also advanced as well that year, and I was really happy about that. And at I guess they had like a banquet at the end. We're in the middle of dinner, and then they kind of like got everyone's attention. They stopped the music and they say, "Everyone, get your attention." And they announced that Brampton had just won the North Region. And they were addressing it to me, and Corwin, the Brampton teams had won the North Region. I was so happy. Everyone's, all the Calgary guys were cheering. I was cheering, and I was so excited, right? And that's that. That's the only thing that really kind of sticks out, in my head. And then like shortly after, I get a call from Jamie, and he's completely lost his voice. You know how he has this raspy voice. Just, dude, we won. Right. And so it's like, yeah, they just announced it. Right. So so it was a satisfying weekend for the Brampton guys won. I was able to win a regional with the Phoenix guys. It was a really good experience. Then coming back, and then going into NACs, I think NACs they were at Richmond NRH.
Right. Okay.
And so that was interesting. So basically it was, I can't remember how many teams. So this is the first year that we actually, we had 8-minute games. Yep. I think in 2000 or 1998, we had, it was still 15-minute games. And in 1999, they switched to 8-minute games. So you get to play 6 games. and then you had triple quests. That's when they kind of introduced all of those formats, right? So going into that tournament, this was the first time I got to learn about strategy, right? It wasn't just about raw talent; it was about strategy and where we want to play and where we want to hold down spots. Phoenix was a very tower type team, and basically it was like you would they would blow up this map of the tower, and they would have like pictures of our heads and just kind of stick them onto, okay, Corwin, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, right? And that's basically how it was done back then, right? And it's all kind of tower set up. The West was very positional, right? And so it was something that I was able to kind of take away from that in terms of the types of strategies that they had. From a pack, it was a different. The pack rotation was a little bit interesting, whereas they didn't assign packs per se. They basically just had everybody. We just drew numbers out of a hat, and whatever number that we drew, that was basically the pack number that our choice on pack, and then it would just kind of rotate, right, all the way up. And I found that was pretty interesting. So, so basically, having something like that set up, and the guys were really confident, like and rightfully so. They were such a dominant team. We went in there, and I think we pretty much won every single game. I think we lost to Houston in one game, but we won every game in prelims, and by a lot. Yeah, like on every And that year it was a bit interesting because the packs, it was shoulder quests. It was all shoulders, right? So you couldn't. It was really difficult to tag lasers. So it was something that we weren't expecting. I know that it was on the forums. Some of the teams are talking about it, so we tried to prepare for it as much as we could. But kind of going into there, if you didn't know, like if you're training all year and practicing all year, tagging lasers, and all of a sudden you can't do it at this type of tournament, then you would be in a lot of trouble. You'd have to adjust really quickly, right? But the Phoenix guys, they really knew how the game works, how the packs work. It was the first time I learned about shoulder reacts. They had that down pat, and and they practiced it a lot. And going into that tournament, we were pretty confident that we were going to do well regardless of what packs they threw at. It's just that the talent that we had on that team was pretty significant. Like if you go in there and you don't pack, and you don't do pack assignments, you just draw out of a hat, and and you get to choose your pack. You're basically playing whatever role that pack is going to give you, right? So it was the prelims were great. When we went into playoffs, I can't remember who we played in playoffs. I think we played like NRH and some other. I can't remember who we played in playoffs, but it was basically. But we like won all three playoff game, all three triple quest games in playoffs, and then when we went to the finals, we played against Denver. I think Austin, and it was all in the tower. Right, everyone just went all into the tower, and we won all three games there too, right? It was my first NAC win. Coming out, it was you could hear, when you're kind of putting your pack up, you can hear like everyone in the lobby, they're like chanting Phoenix, and we felt it inside there as well, like that. We knew that we had won that game, or won that triple quest, and when the scores came up, it was like that's it was that was the moment that okay, we won NACs, and it was I think Phoenix, like we had a bit of a rivalry with Texas, right? So to be able to kind of win it in Texas, in NRH was it was really fulfilling for those guys. It was really good. Yeah, so that was the first NAC win for Phoenix and for me.
And for you, the first of many, actually, as we're gonna discuss.
Yeah.
So 99, so 99's over, and then 2000, you come back to Toronto. So now you're writing off your first few years off of a share amount, like a fair share of success, right?
Yeah.
You win your first type tournament, your first regionals, like your first NAC, your third place, and then you win NAC.
Yeah.
And then 2000, you don't go back straight to BBC. You don't go back straight to Brampton. You play for Mississauga.
For Mississauga.
What happened there? What's the story behind that?
You want to know the story behind that? Okay. Absolutely. So I had to come back to Canada. Like I was down there in Phoenix getting my degree. You know, I was under a student visa, right? And I only had a certain amount of time to land a job. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to find one, and time ran out, and I had to come back to Canada. And but I was still looking. I was still actively looking to find a job and move back down to Phoenix. You know, that's kind of like what my goal was. So I had really no intentions to play in 2000. You know, I had just, you know, it was, you know, and Brampton, from my perspective, Brampton was, you know, they just won a regional. You know, they're really coming out of, you know, they're really coming in out of their shell. You know, Blair starting to really, you know, shine. Adam's really starting to, you know, show his dominance, you know, in the scene. You know, they had some really good chemistry going on. And, you know, and I had no intentions to play. I was actually, my plan was to get a job and basically move back down to Phoenix.
Okay.
And that was it. Right. So, you know, so I'm like throughout like the end of NACs and, you know, moving into 2000, you know, I'm interviewing, I'm looking for, you know, career opportunities, you know, and it wasn't happening. Right. But I wasn't giving up hope. I was like, you know, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Right. And I kind of already made the decision that I don't know if I want. I've already won an NAC. I've been playing this thing for like, you know, 4 or 5 years. You know, it's, you know, for me, it was, I was done. There's nothing more for me to accomplish. Right.
Yeah.
You know, I went down and won an NAC. I got my degree, you know, and, you know, like, you know, what else was there for me to do? Right. So, so where Mississauga came into play was, you know, they were trying to put a team together. They were short. They needed help. I actually built a really good relationship with, you know, the members that are in Mississauga. You know, the general manager that used to be in Brampton moved to Mississauga. And I had a lot of respect for him. Like we became like pretty close. You know, it was Dave. It was Dave.
Yes.
Right. So he taught me a lot, like just from a career aspiration, from a leadership standpoint. Like he taught me a lot. And, you know, he was one guy that like, I just, you know, to this day, like I respect him, you know, a lot, like, you know, compared to like anybody else. Like he helped to, you know, get SummerSlam off the ground, you know, made it a day tournament. Like he really looked out for the members and just really everybody's well-being. And, you know, so I had a lot of respect for him. And, you know, they were trying to get a team together and they couldn't. And Michelle was working for Mississauga at the time as well. So so I had a lot more kind of closer relationships with the Mississauga guys, and the staff and the management team there. And, you know, so I said, you know, like, I don't know if I'm going to play, but if you need me, I can help kind of, you know, fill the spot, right, and at least get you a team. And NACs were in Toronto that year. So it's like, you know, it'd be great to, you know, help you guys somehow get off the ground, help kind of teach you guys and, you know, get you to a point where you guys can qualify and compete in Toronto for NACs. So that's basically, I went to tryouts and, you know, you know, made it onto the team. But I kind of set those expectations that, you know, I don't know, like I may have to drop out if I find a job.
Yeah.
And, you know, and knowing that it wasn't a team that was going to dominate, you know, anytime soon, I don't think that, you know, my absence would have really impacted it to the point where it would crumble that team to the ground. Like, you know, as opposed to if I played for Brampton, you know, and they already had a team and all the same members from the previous year were already playing that year. Like, I didn't feel that it would be, you know, the right time or the right decision to go in, play for Brampton, display somebody, and then leave.
But who were the players on Mississauga on that team?
So Style, there's a guy named Smokey, Marty Meteor was on that team. A couple of young guys too, right? There's this, I think his name is Seven or something like. He was a young version of Adam. You know, myself, Vanilla, Cliff, Deep Freeze, Vanilla were on that team. I don't know if Riptide was on that team. No, I think he played for Brampton.
Okay.
But yeah, it was an older team. Guys that had been playing for quite some time, but didn't really have the raw talent that the guys in Brampton did. Yeah, I mean, and they were around my age as well. So, and that was the only thing, and that was the other side. Is like we hung out a lot, right? We go to movies together, we go to dinner together, right? So, so it was kind of like the group was, was within the range of my ability to be able to hang out with them, every weekend. Yeah.
And regionals, I think, in 2000 were in Rochester. And if I remember correctly, 5 teams were advancing from the north, and Mississauga got 5th, correct?
Yes.
It was interesting because you were saying earlier that, like, if you weren't there, that team,
they wouldn't have qualified. Yeah.
No, that was my
not a qualified. Yeah.
You dragged them over the finish line.
You
went to regionals in Toronto East. Sorry, to NEC in Toronto East. And how did you guys do there? Do you remember?
I think we came dead last.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a couple of guys they went to go see like a UFC fight, or no, they went to like a wrestling pay-per-view like the night before or whatever, and it was just the team started to kind of collapse.
Right.
It was just there's a lot of tension on that team. As the months went on, they didn't do well in Toronto East. I think they came 20th. There were 20 teams there. And it really got to the point where it's like, let's just go and have fun, and whatever happens, right? So like at that point, when we were getting to that point there, like I wasn't able to find a job, and I kind of gave that up, and I started kind of looking locally, which I was able to pick up a job like right away. So that's kind of like my story in the year 2000.
And 2001, you actually switched teams, so you went back to Brampton. How did that happen?
Well, there was no Mississauga team, I don't think, in 2001, right?
Yeah.
So they basically and regionals was in Mississauga, right? So I'm pretty sure. I don't think Mississauga had a team that year.
I'm pretty sure they didn't. You're right. The town was split between like Toronto East and Brampton. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2000, so basically, a couple of the players in Brampton, they didn't want to go. They didn't want to play again the next year, and it was just a matter of, okay, well, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. My goals of kind of going back down to Phoenix to find, to work down there, to live down there, were pretty much over because I'd already picked up a job in an ISP. So I was like, okay, well, if there's anybody, if you guys, it would be great to, I basically had a good talk with Adam, with Jamie. It's like, like if you want me to play with you guys, then absolutely, I'll play with you guys. And if there's anything that I could do to, to help you guys, for sure. Right. And if there's anything that I can, teach you guys, from when I played for Phoenix. I also, like, even in 2000, I was like still connected with the Brampton guys too, right? I was still sharing stuff with them and, letting them know some of the things that here's what we did. And, they were I think they did pretty good in Toronto East at NAC that year too. But yeah, so that's basically how it was. Like it was just really just trying to kind of bring it back together. Like I think when I moved to Phoenix and I played and I decided to play for Phoenix, there's a bit of a falling out. Right. Between myself and the Brampton guys.
Understandably.
The guys that still stayed connected with me were Jamie and Adam and Blair, but the other guys didn't really understand what was going on, right? So, there's a lot of friction, right?
Sorry, can we step away for 2 minutes? Carry on though.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, there's a lot of friction, and and I didn't want to, and the chemistry that the team had at the time in winning the North Region, like they had it, like it's just from what I saw, right? So I didn't want to go in and kind of ruin that chemistry, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like I said, I had really no intentions to continue to play. I think it was near the end of 2000, like I had a good chat with Dave, the general manager in Mississauga, and he told me, it's like, like it's just, you know, because I told him, I don't know if I want to continue to play anymore. I mean, I've done what I needed to do. Like, it's, you know, so the one thing that he, you know, he asked me to kind of like just ask myself was, just kind of, like, why? Like, what is your why? Right? And so, what do you mean? He's like, why do you play? Like, what got you to play the first place? Right? And, it wasn't just the game or the competition. It was the people, it was the relationships that you built. And, just, think about it that way. Right. And if that's something that you want to continue to build and evolve, and, if that's what, makes you happy, then that's all the reason to continue to play. Right. So like, he was the one that got me to kind of look at things a little bit differently, as opposed to I have to win. And it's just it's not it's a bucket list or anything. It's just it's the people that you get the opportunity to meet, from all over the place. That was the main reason why I decided, I think this is, it's from a social aspect. This is something that's great. I think that this is something that I can continue to do. I love, meeting people from all over the place. So that's the reason why, I continued at it. Right. Otherwise, if I didn't have that chat with him, I probably would have been done in 2000.
Well,
yeah.
Interesting. That's a good thing you weren't, because a lot of laser tag to cover, and we're only in like 1 month.
How far are we into this?
About an hour.
We're not halfway.
Oh, and we're still at 2000.
Yep, 2001. Okay, wait. So, did you guys talk about the results? Regionals 2001 and NEC 2001.
No.
So regionals 2001 in Mississauga, which is probably the arena in which you've had the most success, right?
Yeah.
Corwin owns the Laser Quest Mississauga. So how did regionals go for you?
It was the maze, the arena, everything is so unique. It's not like any other laser tag around. It doesn't even have a tower. Everything's all connected. It's just us floors. Very similar to like Montreal. Yeah. And and I don't know how I did. To be honest, 2001 was a bit of a blur for me.
Okay.
I know that we won regionals.
Yes, pretty handy.
I know that. I think Steve played for Forrest played for us that year in regionals. And I remember Conan throwing a chair after our semifinals against them in Montreal.
Why would he do that?
He was upset for some reason. I have no idea. But Montreal advanced, I think, right?
Yes.
So, and we had a rivalry with Toronto East as well. I remember Conan wanted me to play for them. He wrote up a contract and he presented it to me. And he wanted me to sign it, and it had like all these things about how it was like a legal contract. I didn't sign it. I was like, I thought it was crazy, but he was like really serious into this. Like he would walk around with his blue book with all the strategies inside it and everything like that. But he was he was really trying to, just to kind of build that Toronto East team and make it competitive. And, I remember like Conan and Hetfield, like they butted heads a lot. They didn't like each other at all. Right. So I'm pretty sure Conan throwing that chair at the end of that playoff game, Jamie had something to do with it.
Yeah, probably. From my perspective, I remember as soon as we got seated with Brampton and Toronto East, like Jamie came over and grabbed me by the shoulder and it was like, "Congratulations, boys, you're going to finals. Like Toronto East is not making it." So it was pretty funny. It was cool for us. We were super happy to.
Oh yeah. That was so funny. Yeah. 2001. Yeah, like I said, we won regionals and we went to, I think it was in Colorado Springs.
It was.
NACs.
Yes.
And I don't even remember how we did there. I think we maybe came like 5th or 6th.
I think you guys were in consoles. Yes.
And it was the first year that I think we finally made it into consoles as a Brampton team. And I remember us flying back like on the Monday night. So we stayed an extra day, flew back on Monday night, and then Tuesday was like the 9/11 thing that happened, right? So going to work, and it was like, holy cow, if I'd stayed an extra day, then we wouldn't be getting back to Canada anytime soon.
That would be hell.
And that's the only thing I remember in 2001. It was, I think Denver won that year.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of controversy, I think, with Denver winning something about with the Denver download. Yeah, but
so at that point, you've won NEC with Phoenix. You've played with Mississauga. You've played with Brampton. Where's your identity? Which team do you feel like you belong to, and what prompts you to go on with Brampton for the following years?
I think it was just the renewed relationships that I built with Brampton that year, and it was starting to build in 2000 as well. And knowing that I've got a career here, in Toronto, and the fact that Mississauga didn't have a team, and the fact that I wasn't going to play for Conan. I decided that I'll stay with Brampton, and I'll continue to to help the new guys. There's a lot of new guys in Brampton that were up and coming. I think Spam started playing for Brampton. We had T Extreme that was also playing for Brampton at the time. So there's a lot of new talent, new blood that was coming in, and the fact that we had made consoles that year at NACs was to us, this is something we felt that the drive was there. It never fizzled, right? So it's like, okay, let's continue at this. Let's see what we could do for the following year and the years ahead.
Okay, 2002. So again, you have such a history with LaserQuest. I don't want to go over every year like in detail.
Okay,
we're gonna end up with Ramiro, like final.
A Columbo podcast.
I don't have. I heard it went for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, that's it. 2002, 2003, still a fair share of success. Like either you win regionals, you're second place at regionals. NACs, I think you don't make finals, but you're like pretty up there. You're like consoles and everything. So let's talk about 2004 because something pretty special happened in 2004.
Yeah, so 2004, it was that's a very memorable year. It was NACs were in Rochester, and we basically, the way that the tournament started at that NACs was very interesting. I think that they had to cancel and they had to restart the tournament.
Yes.
And I think that year, right, the way that schedules were done were that the first seeds for every region played the first 4 games. And what happened was they were all, I think, on the red set, and all 4 number 1 seeded teams lost all 4 games.
Yeah.
And it was and I think Denver was one of it was the 4th team that lost, or it was one of the teams that lost. And it was at that point, it was like, okay, there's something wrong. How can the number 1 teams across every single region that won the regional lose their games, right? And then, so they had to stop the tournament. They had to take a look to see, okay, what was going on. And they found out that, the way that they set up the packs it was basically 1 through 9, 10 through 18, 19 to 27. And I remember Gaspacho, as soon as he found that out, right? Well, he kind of knew going in. He's like, "You guys this is crazy, right? This is going to be such a lopsided tournament. All these packs are so off kilter, and to the point where they realize, that there was something wrong when Denver loses a prelim game against 2 teams that probably wouldn't have otherwise won. So they stopped the tournament, and I think Gaspacho gave them the list. This is what you need to have, and they basically reshuffled all the packs and started the tournament all over again.
Okay.
And so it was a lot more balanced. There was one set that was a little bit weaker, but it was a lot more balanced than what it was before. And basically, throughout the tournament, in Rochester is a very interesting maze. They don't really have towers either, right? So it's a one big, huge tower that goes around, and there's this thing in the middle, and you kind of go around it. It's a very big arena. And basically, that was the year when we decided, I think after the first day, that night, we're kind of going through and we're thinking about, what are we going to do? I think we had to play Phoenix in the playoffs, and or we're basically we're predicting to play Phoenix in the playoffs. And I was sharing with them, well, Phoenix is a tower team, they're gonna want to play up in the tower, and all these other teams are gonna want to play up in the tower, right? And I think I think it was Agent out of all people, he was on our team, and he said, like, then why are we playing in the tower? Like, why don't we like play on the floor and let them play in the tower? And it was like one of those light bulb moments that kind of came up. I was like, yeah, you're right. why are we playing in the tower? Right. So we came up with a strategy, around, Blair and Adam. They just kind of worked out a strategy. It's like, oh, well, this is what we can try to do. We can kind of stack our top packs in, one area, like just a couple of, and then the rest of us, like, we know the maze enough, right? We've been, we know the floor a little bit. I think earlier in the year, kind of leading up to NECs, we went to Rochester, probably like we went to Rochester like one time to practice with them, but we played a lot of the floor, so we kind of had an idea as to how the floor was, and we also played there at regionals, a few years before, so we knew the maze a little bit. So we decided to, build out a strategy that basically didn't have all of us just packed into a tower, but really our top packs we would put into the tower, and we would kind of flank the other teams, and and use areas of the floor to kind of basically run away if someone came down after you, right? So I remember like in our semifinal games against Phoenix, like we drew them down into the floor, and they had like, it looked like they had no idea what was going on. I remember Beezy like tripping over like walls and like tripping over the, some of the, like on the ground, like he just fell down, right? They didn't know what was going on. We beat Phoenix, I think, in that semis, and then went into the finals, and we did the same thing. We played NRH in Houston, and we and I think they kind of wanted to also take it out into the tower as well. And so what we did was we sent like a couple of our guys up there into the tower, and everyone else was kind of like spread out onto the floor. And eventually what ended up happening was that we flushed, like everyone just ended up flushing down into the floor, and it just became like just complete chaos for the other teams. And I remember like being up in the tower looking down, and I'm just seeing our lights are on and everyone else is like just down. And, it was that moment that I knew that, we had this, and it was a really good win. We weren't sure. We were playing two Texas teams. We weren't sure. Maybe they had like, I know that they were rivaling each other, so I don't know if they actually kind of like ignored us, right? But it was basically, it was not something we weren't expecting to win, but kind of as the tournament progressed and we were doing so well against that bad set, when we played that bad set as well as we did and kept it close, we knew that it's our tournament. It's our tournament to lose, and right. We just had to kind of stick with the plan. And it was the first time as a team that we actually were disciplined enough to stick with that plan. I know that in the previous years that we've tried, here's the plan, and let's follow this and do what we can and just try to kind of be disciplined and stay with it. And then like within 2 minutes, and it just falls apart, right? A lot of teams we see that happening, but for the first time, we trusted each other enough to be able to, that this plan was going to work out. And because we tried it in our semifinals and it worked, and I think that was enough confidence for us to be able to kind of do the same thing in finals. And it worked out really well. And we won. I remember Jamie was in tears. He was so happy. Michelle was there. She was in tears. Like everybody was happy. Exodus was congratulating us, and it was a really good. And it was the same thing. It reminded me a lot of 1999, where we were coming out of the final game, and you could just hear BBC chants happening, and it was it's one of those feelings that it gives you like goosebumps, right? Like you just come out, you're racking you're putting your pack on the rack, and you just hear everyone just chanting BBC, and it was and then the score monitor, the scores come up, and then that was it. And it was that was very memorable. Yeah.
You knew though, like coming out of that third game, we knew we
knew we had it. We knew we had it done. It was, but knowing what's happened in the previous years, right, with Denver and finals and the Denver, like we didn't leave anything to chance. Like although we knew we did well, there was always a what if, right? Yeah. And it wasn't until like the scores came up and we saw our scores, that we knew like right away. We didn't have to look at the total scores. We just saw our rankings and we knew that we had won. Yeah.
All right. So second NAC win in the bank, no biggie, by 2004. So now we move on. 2005, 2006. Again, I'm going to gloss over them real quick. Although, so which is the year that there's a year that you skipped because you got married, correct?
2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that year, you skipped regionals and NEC, is that correct?
I skipped the whole year. Yeah. That year, we were planning. It was just getting married is a very expensive investment. So I decided. I talked to the team, and it's like, I'm getting I just got engaged the year before, and I'm getting married in 2006. I think NACs were in Vegas that year too. And I let the guys know. I was like, I can't. I have to. This is more important. Like, I need to really kind of focus on this. And I think the year before, it was at NACs were at Mesquite, and we came fourth. So they were really kind of we've started winning consoles, right? So it's like, okay, just take this momentum and bring it to Vegas, and take it home. But yeah, I didn't try out. I still remain connected. Jamie was calling me every day, and he was like, "Oh, you got to play. I was like, Jamie, I'm getting married, right?" So it was, so they understood, right? They, it wasn't, there wasn't a falling out or anything. Like, they understood my situation, and that year, it seems like the years that I didn't play for Brampton, it was like it was the years where you have all this new blood that comes in, and I think that was the year that Justin started coming, getting into the game, and I think Stu as well. So a lot more people were able to kind of come in and fill in, the void that I may have left, and really help to kind of strengthen that team overall. But yeah, in 2006, and I think Brampton came fourth that year. That was the year that Lincoln went undefeated, right? Throughout. Yeah. So I wish I was there. I wish I got got a chance to play. But it would just, I was already spending so much money just getting ready for the wedding and our honeymoon and everything. It's just I couldn't afford it. The trip to Vegas, or even I needed to be focused on the wedding and everything. So
yeah. Did you do any side tournaments?
Or was I 2006. I don't even think I did. And I may have. No, I don't even think I played a side tournament in 2000. I was completely off the grid in 2006. Yeah.
So obviously, if you would have went to NAC, Brampton would have won, right, that year.
They, I think they had Conan on that team.
Oh, Conan. Or maybe that's later. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, we didn't give him a contract or anything like that, but Conan was I think statistically, what I understood, I think statistically, if Conan had sat out,
I heard that story,
game, and they took a 20% deduction, they would have placed higher.
That's 2009, actually. That's 2009.
Was it 2009?
But you're absolutely right. If you guys would have played, actually Toronto East would have played with a deduction, they would have won that year.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. But okay, I want to segment into 2007 is the year that probably the strongest team from the GTA ever, on paper, probably the strongest team, we have reproduced from the GTA happened. And that year, Brampton kind of fell apart and did not perform more up to expectations. What happened from your perspective?
2007 also was a bit of a blur. I just came back. Okay, so I'm off. I'm off for a year. And I started, playing again, and I think that, and this is the first time I got to meet Justin and Stu. Justin had a mohawk, and it's like, who are these guys, right?
I remember that.
These new players, right? And he was doing this shaky thing with this. I was blown away, right? And it's but I was completely out of shape. I almost didn't make tryouts that year.
Wow.
It was after the first night, I remember had him pulling me aside. And he's like, "What are you doing?" So I don't know. I don't know what's going on, right? So it's like it's just you kind of take things for granted, and like you think that you can in some cases you could just jump right back into it. For me, I'd lost kind of like that momentum leading all the way up, and then and in 2006, I just wasn't able to play or perform at the level that I was before. It took a lot for me to get back into it again. But the second night of tryouts, I had to really, suck it up, and I was able to just squeak in to the team. But I think that was the year that, Justin made the team. Stu, I think, also made the team that year. But then that meant I made the team as well, but that also meant that someone had to get displaced, right? And one of those guys was Jamie, right? So there was enough players that we had in Brampton that year to have like 3 teams, right? Wow.
Yes.
And I think that because we had some guys come from Montreal to play, I think we had like it was basically just a culmination of every center in the GTA came to Brampton to play. And I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. I was so I was still out of touch with what was going on. I was like, okay, cool. This is awesome. We have 27 people. Like, this is amazing, right? So, but it created a lot of friction. Like when Jamie didn't make the team, it was a lot of friction because he's been with us the entire time, right? And and I think that was kind of like the start of things beginning to fall apart. We were rivaling, Jamie's team, the B team, a lot. There's a lot of arguments. And I think when, we got to a point where we basically, said, what, we can't continue to practice against each other. We have to, break it out so that, maybe 1 week, every couple weeks we'll play against the B team, but the other weeks we got to play amongst ourselves, like as a team. And, you could feel a bit of a rift being created, just because of everything that had gone on, right? And rightfully so, right? It's just that you've got folks that have been playing with you for so many years, and then now you get these new guys coming in, and they don't make the team anymore. It becomes a situation of, why didn't you help me out, right? And and I said to Jamie, I almost didn't make the team myself. Right. So it's like, this is the new generation of what's happening here. It's like, up and coming new players that are, like, it's just, we can't, we won't be able to stay on top for this long. Right. There's new people that are going to come in. Right. And we just have to accept that. Right. And at the time, we had just won NAC a couple of years ago. It's like, at the time, I don't think it was like myself or Jamie or anybody really were prepared to accept that. And, but it was something that was inevitable. It was going to happen, right? And I think a lot of that kind of surfaced the previous year when these opportunities came up, right? In 2007, when we had this team put together, when it was formed, it was one of the strongest teams that we had on paper. It was incredibly strong. I think we were pretty confident that we were going to go into Gwinnett. I think that's where NACs were. And win, just because it was, we felt that it was even stronger than our 2014. And just based on the raw talent that we had on that team.
Yeah.
What's that?
From your perspective, in 2007, obviously you would lose to Houston. What ended up happening this weekend, and what went wrong?
I think that it's tough to say because Gwinnett was a really good center. Their packs were really nice. I think there was a little bit of friction on the team, but not to the point where it would basically collapse us. I think that when it came down to it, there's really no like Houston. They went in there ready. I remember, like they had Vince. Colombo was playing like amazing. I just remember like just Colombo was like, I think he came in the top 5 like overall. That team was on that at that tournament. I don't think that even if it was a double quest, like we had Hoffman, I think in the finals. I think that it was. They just outplayed us, right? And it was pretty close, I think. right? I think they beat us by like a couple hundred points, but I think they wanted this more than we did, right? And their chemistry was there. You could tell, right? They were communicating in the maze. I think I had one of my worst finals in NAC history and all the NACs I've ever played.
Right.
I don't even remember what happened. I don't know. Maybe I ran out of gas, but I ended up like in the last game. I think I scored like a double-digit score, and that could have cost us, right? So, but it's one of those things that you can never expect, no matter how hard you try. But even then, even if I was able to play a bit better, that I think that Houston would have been able to find a way to beat us. They were the team to beat, and they wanted more than we did. And they've been working really, really hard, and they had the right people in the right roles to counter what we had. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Something I did not include as part of the agenda, but I actually want to talk about is 2008. Obviously, there is the exodus from BBC to Toronto East.
Yeah.
Like Adam, and then Justin, and then Stu.
Yeah.
So 2008, actually, Brampton had a team that you were on. Yeah. So how did the season go for you, regionals and NEC?
How's what?
How did the season? How did you guys do at regionals? And then did you qualify for NEC?
I think we qualified for NACs. I can't remember. I think we came maybe like 4th at regionals. Regionals, I think, was in Virginia, Richmond. And I think the Toronto team won that. Did they win? Yeah, I think they won that region. But we did qualify. We did qualify for NACs. I think at NACs we came like 8th. But I think it's and we had to play Lincoln, I think, in our playoffs, and it wasn't good. I think Lincoln and Hoffman. I can't remember the other team, but yeah, it was not good at all. But we had our team. We had a lot of new guys on our team. We had like Prodigy. I think we had Bones. Like they started playing with us. I think we had Slash. Slash was on our team. A lot of new players, like just up and coming, on that team that year. We didn't have Blair. Blair played with us at regionals. I don't think he played at NACs. It was a bit of old blood, new blood kind of mixed in there. I think Jamie was on our team. But I think that definitely like the guys that played for us the previous year, like the Stews and the Justins and they all went to Toronto East, to kind of put their team together, and they definitely freaking killed it that year, and just no one expected it, and it just it just got better from there.
Okay. Moving forward, 2009 I think was a year off. Did you even play in 2009? Because
I don't think I did in 2009. No. I don't even remember ever playing in 2009.
Why was that?
So,
I don't know.
I think.
Well, Brampton didn't have a team in 2009.
That's it.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, well, there's nowhere to play, so I didn't play. That's the year that Conan played for Toronto East, right?
Yeah,
and he went to Vegas. Yeah.
I have more questions about that. I'm going to ask you a little bit later. I do want to talk about 2010 though, because it was a very active year for you, and very successful year for you as well. So I think Phoenix wants to ask you about one tournament in particular in 2010.
One tournament? Just WLC?
Phoenix.
So the one tournament that you wanted to talk about that stand out the most is the one that you played at Mountain View format. In 2010. So on that team, you played with Dar, Chewy, and T-Mac from Featherweight, right?
Yeah.
And you actually won that tournament out of all odds, right? So how about you elaborate on that? How did you end up playing with them, and how did you guys do? Well, you guys obviously won, but how was the process?
I think it was, I think Justin had played the Mountain View Foreman the previous year or the year before that and was telling me how great it was. 2010 was a year of like, it was a lot of stuff that happened that year. It's just because, Michelle and I were planning to have Ashlyn. So we're like, okay, you know what? Let's just do this as our last hurrah, right? And we traveled to France, like just to get everything kind of out of the way. and that was also a year. I was like, I've never played with these guys. And I heard about it, and I was like, okay, well, I just kind of get the feelers out there. So there's anybody that wants to play, and I think T-Mac may have, I think, just reached out to me and said, hey, we're looking for a team. And I said, oh, great, awesome. Who's there? Who's on the team? He's like, it's me, it's Dar, it's Chu. I didn't know who these guys were at the time. I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's do it, right? I was going to be in California anyway that year. So I was like, okay, let's go down there and let's see what happens. And as the team started forming that year, that we had like, I discovered that there were teams like, there was a team of Atticus, Smurf, Warrior, and Lollipop.
Wow.
There was a team of Damien, and Lou, Shrew, and Rain. And there was a team of Chow, 007, and Knock.
Oh, wow.
So me, Dar, T-Mac, and Chewy are going to go in there and compete against these guys, right? So I was like, no, let's do our best and see what happens, right? So, like as long as we... If I'll share with you, some of the things that we've been able to do to make our, to be successful and to beat teams like this. And, we just have to kind of follow through on it. Right. And I heard Dar was, up and comer, and he was really, really good in the West region. And so I said, okay, cool. So me and Sam will kind of like work together, and, we'll see if we can kind of carry T-Mac and Chewy to a victory. Right. So we went in, and they had kind of a pack list already, kind of like they've been playing there, right? So we went in and so look at the pack list. It's like, well, let's pack me up. Let's pack up Dar next, and then you guys kind of like alternate between the other two packs. And basically, we played out the tournament. We took first overall in prelims. So by that, and the way that they do playoffs is, do kind of like elimination playoffs. And the way that works is you get to choose to the packs, or you can choose like the area of the maze, right?
Right.
So we're like, okay, we're gonna choose the packs. We're at the top of the place. So if we win each bracket, then we'll always have first choice because we're like the number one seed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, no matter what happens, forget about the maze. We'll learn that quickly, but we need to stick with these packs. Right. So that was basically it in terms of, from going from quarters to semis to finals. We knew the packs well enough that, we were able to really, become, like to really master it and know how they performed while the other teams are coming in. They may or may not have played those pack sets. So it was something that they had to kind of adjust to pretty quickly. So I think we ended up playing Atticus's team in the finals, and we beat them. It was close. It was really, really close. So we beat them, but I remember it was like one of the most satisfying moments when we won that, because it was more towards, I was so happy for like T-Mac and Chewy that they didn't even think they were going to win this tournament, and they were so excited and so happy. That they were like still messaging me like days after, thank you and everything. But I was more happy for them than for even myself, and and Dar than for myself, just because of the competition that we had to beat to get to win that tournament. And that was pretty much like my first. I hadn't won like a side tournament in a while, and the fact that we didn't even have to stack for that tournament, and we were able to go in and win it was, I think that was one of my more proudest accomplishments in side tournament wins.
Wow.
Nice.
Easy.
Actually, another tournament that I didn't include in the agenda, but I want to talk about that happened in 2010. I have something for show and tell. So give me 2 seconds.
Show and tell. What's that?
So
That's
what is
Blair.
the story? What is the story behind
Vegas.
this picture, Corwin?
Oh my gosh! So that was Vegas, right? Okay,
Yes.
so that was at the beginning of 2010.
Yes.
Okay. I think like I think we stayed at the Excalibur.
Yes.
And then as we were kind of like going over the bridge from the Excalibur to the Luxor, we saw like these women doing photo ops, and like just, they kept trying to get us to go and say take pictures with us, right? And it's like no, it's okay, it's okay. We went to that tournament, and we won it. It was a tough tournament, and basically at the end we were like, okay, how do we celebrate this, right? And I think Scott was like, "What about those women?" It's like, "Okay, what do you mean?" So we'll take a picture with them. We'll hold their trophies and everything. It's okay. Well, let's I don't want to show up like in shorts and a shirt and all sweaty, right? Let's go back to the hotel. Let's clean up. Let's dress up, and we'll go out and if they're still there, we'll get a picture with them. And then lo and behold, we showed up, we had our trophies, and they didn't know what we were there for, right? You won something. Okay, cool. We'll take a picture with you, right? And so we took that picture, and
That's
okay.
funny.
So first of all, I want to say I missed the memo about like dressing up clean and everything. But if you look at you, you're a baller. Look at this, like you were ready.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Vegas is so much fun.
So this was not the first time you won Vegas, though. How many Vegas tournaments did you win altogether?
Oh, I don't know, like
2, 3, something
maybe
like that?
4. I won it in 2000. I think my first Vegas win was like in 2001.
Oh, wow.
I'd say.
Okay.
And I was just with a throw together team as well, right? It was like with IRS and Punisher and Ramiro, myself, Jerk, I think was on that team.
Quite possible, yeah.
Yeah, it's just 2001, and like we were playing against really stacked competition. Like Phoenix was on the rise, so they had a whole full squad there, and we went in there like we were from every different region. Like we weren't really kind of standouts. I don't think we had like the accolades as some of the other teams that were out there, but we went in there. We just really clicked together, and I'll tell you, like IRS was very prepared going into that tournament. I remember like he had a whole list of all the packs. He had us assign like what we were going to play, and I just went in there and just kind of did my thing, and that was a fun tournament.
So continuing 2010, so this win, your Vegas win was in January. In, I believe, March, you went to France to play in WLC.
Yeah.
So how was that experience for you?
That was with you.
Yeah, with Elven, right?
Yeah. Created a bit of a coalition with the French guys. And, so we banded. So basically, I think it was Spider, myself, Gammy, and we basically decided, we're due for a WLC. Let's do one in France. Let's let's kind of figure out the venue, set one in France. And basically
That's Louis for you.
Yeah. So basically there was a lot of effort behind the scenes to get this going, right? And so I was kind of like in charge of trying to see, if we can assemble any Canadian teams. I can't remember who represented the US, but they were kind of like looking at putting, I think Lou may have been part of that group to help to put the team together, the US team. And then, Spider had like the biggest task because it was in France. He had to kind of work with all the different centers, and I think they had like 12 teams like in France. Like French had the 12 teams, and then I think Gammy was able to put together 4 teams from the UK. So in 2010, I think Adam was the team was supposed to be myself, Justin, Blair, you, Alex, Sushi, and then I think Adam. And so that was the team that we were going to send to Worlds. And I think the last minute Adam couldn't go, so we ended up picking up Stu. So we made all the travel arrangements. We went down there, and we spent probably the first couple days in Paris. So we weren't even touched the center. So we were in Paris, like in the heart of Paris, staying at the Holiday Inn. Basically you walk out and you're you're in the middle, like you're like it's downtown Toronto, like everything's there, right?
Yeah.
And it was probably it didn't feel like we were there for a tournament. It felt like we were like on vacation.
Right.
We went to we did all, we went to see the Louvre, we went to the Eiffel Tower, every tourist attraction that they had in Paris. The one thing that I learned about Paris, France specifically, is that everything's in circles. Everywhere you go, you have to go around in circles. There's a roundabout. There's a roundabout everywhere. If you look at the map of Paris, it's a big circle, right? And it's just, that's one thing, and that probably explains why like the French people spin around so much. Right, so just everything's just in circles. So
it's in their culture.
It's squares or anything like that, right? So it's like if you had to get somewhere, you're just going around in a circle, right? And but it was a ton of fun. So we spent like the first couple of days, in Paris, meeting different people, just hanging out, having baguettes. I think Alex, you were able to find some authentic restaurant off the tourist area. And we had like the weirdest food. I think we had like pig intestines and it was like some weird stuff, right? That's really good. Yeah. So thank God that you were there, you're able to speak French and kind of navigate us around. But it was a ton of fun. And then after like a couple of days just sightseeing and everything, we headed out to Cognac. I think that's where the tournament was at.
Yeah.
And Cognac. Cognac.
Yeah, it's tough to say in English. Yeah.
And so we went there, and basically, I think the American guys are already there. They were staying there already. The one thing that we kind of discovered in Europe and staying in the hotels in Europe and whatnot, it's very, very small.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's literally you couldn't even move, right? Like you're just like, so it's not like the hotels that we have here where there's like, you have like, 400 or 500 square feet. It's like, 100 square feet of this room that you can navigate in. Right. So that was the one thing that we kind of, we picked up from there, but we went there to Cognac, did the mixer, played the tournament. And I think there were like 18 teams at that tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, France helped with a lot. Yeah.
They were the scene was so active. They were just really kind of rising from just starting up, and their member space was so amazing, and there was a lot of rivalries too amongst the French teams, and there's even a bigger rivalry between French and the England teams. I don't think they like Trixie at all, but but he was there. So but it was a 2-day tournament. It was the first tournament that we ever did where like you had to start at like 7 a.m. So we would go there before the tournament starts, and they have all these croissants ready for you and orange juice, and you just kind of have your breakfast, and the tournament would start. And they would have this big screen that would be kind of scrolling the scores of the tournament, and it had another kind of screen that would be showing like they had cameras in the maze. And it was nice. It was a nicely run tournament. It was the first time that we played a tournament without like pack numbers, so everything's random, right? And it was like a double quest. I think that was a double quest playoffs as well at the WLC. We played. I think we played the new team, or we played a French team, new team. I think
new team.
In the semis, and we lost to them by like 100 and something. It was close.
40,
I think we lost them by 100. It was a 40 points. We lost them by 40 points. 42 points. 42.
Wow, that's close.
And then the US team made it into the finals, and they won. They had a really good strategy. It's basically their strategy was to shut down Toss. Toss was their best player, and if anybody could shut him down, he was a center, right? So he was scoring like 800 points a game, almost like every single game. So they were able to kind of double up on him, and they shut him down, and he was kind of like the anchor for that team. And when they did that, then it was they locked it down, and they won that tournament. I was really happy for them. And I think we ended up playing TCQ in the third, fourth playoffs, or the consolation third, fourth, and we beat them. But I think they were kind of out of it, right? But yeah, we came third that year. It was interesting. Like the media was there. They were taking pictures of it, like all of us. So it did bring a lot of attention, and it was a really good. For me, I thought that was even though we came third, I thought it was an amazing experience. Like just end to end. Those the French guys were so hospitable. They took us out to have like what is it? The cheese.
Fondue.
Yeah, fondue. And
Fondue.
they took care of us, and then we did a bit of touring after that, and headed home. But yeah, it was great. It was first European tournament that at that level that I got a chance to play in, and it was really eye opening in terms of seeing different types of international competition, to seeing how these players played. It was the first time that even kind of leading up to there, they were posting a lot of videos, like Sorry Team, Emil, Joker, those guys were like showing some of their one-on-ones and some of the things that they did. That's how we kind of learned about how they spun all the time when they played. It was really fun getting to play, all those players, and even getting to know them, right? A bit of a language barrier, but Alex was able to kind of help break down that barrier a little bit for us. But overall, it was their kind of first taste of a North American team, a Canadian team, an American team playing, and I think that from there, that really kind of helped, even further grow the the members base in France. Like not like it was already like strong, but I think it just kind of gave them a bit of an eye on, hey, there's other talent that's around here, especially an American team coming in and winning in their home soil. I'm sure it kind of ignited some fires there, and they started to, from what I heard, they started to really dominate for years to come after that, after 2010.
Well, until you went back there and put them in their place, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. I do want to stick with 2010 though, because that's not the last that 2010 has to offer. 2010 comes around, you play for Toronto East and you win your third NEC. How did that feel? How did that go?
Oh, that was in Hoffman, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we played NRH in the finals. Yeah. And this was the first. So this NAC. So I didn't play the year before. Played for Toronto East in 2010, and on this team, like you had like Echo, you had like all of the new guys, like the guys from Richmond Hill that were on that team. It was a very, very new team, and I think Blair was on that team as well. So Blair and I play for that team. So I think that it's the one thing that really that resonates for me winning that tournament. It wasn't even for myself, but it was being able to look at the faces of the guys that the new guys that they put all their sweat and tears and just the many years of us beating the hell out of them when they didn't have a team, and they finally won their first NAC. And I remember like coming into that last game, right? And I knew that we had won, right? I wanted to just, I didn't even look at the score. I was just looking at them, and I just took a moment to soak it in, to see, okay, these guys, it's all kind of coming together. And, I was so proud of these guys winning, their first NAC. I had already won it before, and to be able to see them winning it, it was a really good feeling, being able to help them achieve that. It's not something that's easily that you can do. There are teams that are out there that have been trying to do this for many, many years and have never been able to do it. But for these guys to be able to do it, and for me to be able to help them through that, along with the other guys like Adam and Blair, like we won, right? It was a really good feeling. It was a very satisfying feeling. Seeing these guys, how happy they were when, they finally, it took a while for that to sink in for those guys too. Right. So it was like days, like, oh, I can't believe we won. Like, yeah, you guys did it. Right. You guys are, the best team in North America. So it was, that's the only thing that really kind of stood out was, that final moment when we knew that we had won, and the looks on those guys' faces. Yeah.
2011, you come really close to repeating, like 10, 15 points, I think, it was against NRH.
Yeah, so it was. I think that was in Vegas, and we came second. It was within. I remember the score was NRH won by I think they scored 46-45, and we came second. We scored 46-30 by one tag.
One tag, yeah.
15 points. And again, like we went in there with pretty much the same team. And it was basically, it was in Vegas. It could have gone either way, right? I think what happened that year was that they had a really good strategy, which was to shut down Adam. So I think they stuck Ricky on him like both games of finals, and basically, that could have been, that could have been the difference right there, right? But it also gave us the opportunity for like myself and some of the other guys to really step up. And it really kind of shows how important teamwork was. Like if we didn't win there with any type of teamwork and without any type of strategy and just kind of relied on our own, like our raw talent, we probably would have lost by a lot more. But I remember, kind of like at this point, I've been like playing for quite some time now, right? So, I remember like sitting out there with Ricky, as the scores were coming up, and we couldn't figure it out. Like, it was just so close, right? And we're looking at it, and eventually someone kind of did the calculations as, NRH won by like 15 points. Right. It was the first thing I did. Was Ricky, congratulations. It was so close. It's awesome. And I remember him saying, you guys better be here next year. Right. We can't let it end like this. Right. So yeah, don't worry. We'll be here next year. And that's kind of like the camaraderie that we, over the years of playing with NRH against NRH, that we kind of built, right, to that level of mutual respect. And it never really got to the point where it was, to hell with you, right? It was really, it was a respect on both sides, right? And I was happy for them. Like, we shook their hands. 15 points is a really bitter pill to swallow, right? Because you get to think, okay, you could have gone any other way, right? If I was going to lose, I would rather lose by like 1,500 points, and there'd be no way. But for some reason, like, us losing at 15 points, it was it was tough, right? And there's so many things that you could think that you could have done, but I think that we were pretty happy with and content with knowing that we did the very best that we could that year, and they were the better team. And the fact that we were able to make it to finals that year, and be able to compete with NRH again, and had the opportunity to do that, was just a prize on its own, right? Like it's not often that you are able to play in the finals at a national tournament, back to back, right? And for us to be able to do that was that was good, right? It would have been nice to win, but it's the cards didn't fall our way that year.
Right. Yeah. Luckily, though, you get to have the last laugh, because the following year and the last year that we have in AC, 2012, you nabbed your fourth title and you went in AC against Toronto East. How was that for you?
It was great. I think that year, kind of off the back of 2011, right? We kind of got together and it was like, okay, you know what? Let's do it again, right? And let's see what we can. Let's focus more on strategy. As opposed to like, and different types of strategy, right? And I think that's what ultimately it came down to, us having the edge on NRH that year. Whereas we were always we had like spam, we had like, we had like a lot of, cerebral players on our team that really kind of thought outside of the box and, kind of theory craft in a 2-team game, right? Knowing that we played in, we understand the Vegas arena, right? What's the best way that we can maximize our points and be able to kind of create the illusion for the other team that, that they've got control to prevent them from leaving, right? So that was really kind of like the focus on what do we need to do? How do we create that type of illusion, right? So I think kind of like in finals playing NRH, one of the things that we did was, we in the back tower, I think we put like myself, like the plan was to put myself, Adam, and Echo, Adam, the other Adam, into that back tower. and just basically, you know, and try to kind of like just duke it out with those guys, right? And and then spread everybody else. I think we put like Time out in the left tower, and Hot Dice was like kind of like on the ramp on the right tower, just kind of shooting in. So we had like tactically set up a strategy to place people in different areas to kind of flank as many of the NRH players as we could. And I think as the game kind of played out, right, just the three of us in that tower, you know, we were kind of going tag for tag, but there were more of them in that tower than we were, right? So when the other players are having, the NRH players are having problems like in other towers, they would be calling for help, right? The guys in our tower wouldn't leave because they felt that they were doing so well. Meanwhile, the players in the other towers were not doing so well. So we were able to kind of lock them in to that tower. And I think it just, and then just getting pickup tags. The guys on the outsides were just getting pickup tags as wherever they could. It wasn't a 15-point win, or, you know, it was a sizable margin that we won by. But the same thing, right? So it's the same thing. I remember like out there with Ricky again, here we are again, Ricky, like what's going to happen, right? And it was the same thing. As soon as the score comes out, we was like, hey, Ricky, you better be here next year, right? So it became a thing between me and Ricky every year, right? Where we kind of go back and forth. So it's like, you know, it's, and that's, again, it was the respect that we had for each other, and, you know, they respected our wins, we respected their wins, and you know, and like ultimately it was like the Toronto East NRH show basically every year, with kind of Mesa in the back. I really felt bad for them, but I can talk about them a little bit later. But yeah, it was, almost every playoffs that we had was against Mesa. And you know, they always got the short end of the stick, you know, unfortunately, but yeah. But that was our last NAC win, and then NAC was canceled after that.
Well, that was last NAC in general.
Yeah.
I think we moved to, in the agenda, we're going to WLC 2017, right? Is that what we're at?
2017. Yes. Woking.
Yeah, that's a walk-in where I was. Yeah.
So 5 years later, fast forward 5 years, because we're all how far into this are we now?
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay.
About 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Woking. WLC was in Woking.
So like last WLC, Adam was supposed to be on the team and didn't.
I think they went to Disneyland that year.
Yeah, he planned another trip.
Yeah. The team was me, Justin, Matt, and then the Houston guys, Vince, Nick, and Ramiro. I'd never played with Vince. I think I played with all of them except for Ramiro. I never played. I never played with Nick. So it's the first time playing with Nick. And it was, you know, I don't think Houston had a center at that time either. So,
no.
So those guys, Nick and Ramiro, had to basically drive all the way to San Antonio to play, and that's about like a 2 hour. That's a long drive to play laser tag, right? So I mean, the level of commitment that they had to put into, you know, practicing and playing was like huge, right? Whereas myself, Justin, and Matt, you know, we decided, we had kind of like an idea as to what the Woking packs were like, just kind of talking to Trixie. So we chose a center that was close to that type of pack setup, and it was we played at Oakville. So we, like, every week we were playing at Oakville. We're just practicing different things, and you know, Adam was originally on our team. He had to drop out, and we picked up Justin. Justin was not on that team. Trixie was actually on our team at one point, but I think he got a lot of flack from his own team, and so he had to drop out. Okay. So the team was, it was like a team of me, Adam, you know, Nick, Ramiro, Vince, Nick, and Trixie was kind of like so, all like 7 of us, like with an alt, and then, you know, these things, you know, like Trixie couldn't play, Adam had to drop out, and we picked up Justin, and we went without an alt, and I remember the week before, I'd started like at this time now I'm like starting to get into like other things. Like I'm getting into triathlons, I'm doing Ironmans. I had like the week before the tournament, I had to do a half Ironman locally in the area. And I wasn't sure because these events are pretty taxing. I wasn't even too sure how I'd be able to perform like a week later because like what you're doing is pretty intense on your body, right? To be able to recover in that period of time to play a tournament overseas, get used to the jet lag and everything. I wasn't too sure, but I was pretty confident with my fitness that I'd be able to kind of get by. So kind of going into that tournament, it was at Woking. It was the same type of setup. It was hidden packs, very random. The one thing that they did differently this year was they pre-coded all of the games just to really push the games forward. So the one thing I didn't even know that you could do is you can like pre-code all of your games ahead of time and just energize them, right? And whoever was on what pack would automatically, you'll see your codename. You just grab the pack that had your codename on it.
But on that matter, I was there, and I had an issue with that being like I remember going into the playoff game, and I had an issue coming in playing against. I mean, it's all in fairness, right? I was playing against Trixie's team, and I walked in, and our packs were already coded in. So like, as much as you can say it's random, I'm playing your first round of playoffs. Doesn't make sense. I remember walking out and looking at your team and saying, "I'm not playing this unless you guys key us in." Like randomly, because I was like, in all fairness, it doesn't make sense, I understand what it means, but how do I know which packs are really, And I was playing against Trixie's team on their turf, so there was something, anyways.
So I think at that point, so I think it was at that point they changed it up a bit, and they did something a little bit more fair. So they basically grabbed like 6 activators. They code the names in. And none of the activators are labeled, and they just put them into a box, or they just randomly give it to somebody, a runner, to take it up to the airlock, and they would just randomly key in 6 packs, and that's as fair as you're going to get. It's as random as you're going to get because you don't have no idea who's on what activator. And I think for playoffs, they eventually started doing it that way, which I was like, okay, that's okay, right? But I think it was, that tournament there was. You had some really strong French teams that were there. You had Roxage, you had Phoenix. Phoenix, apparently, this team over the years, they apparently they were like undefeated for a very, very long time. And what was interesting with these teams in France was that they played within their own centers. They never really kind of stacked or anything like that. So it was a raw team that I don't know what center that they were from, but man, these guys they were like amazing. We were kind of watching them as we were playing out through prelims and everything, and they were just absolutely annihilating every single team that they were playing. The raw talent that every single one of those guys had was. Like if we were to go one-on-one with those guys, and I'll tell you a funny story. Like the before the tournament started, they had like a 2-on-2 competition. Right. It was, so this is basically you going heads up against like these guys, right? And Justin and I played the 2-on-2, and we played 2 of their top players, and we absolutely got annihilated by them. Right, like we came like negatives, right? And I remember Nick was there. And Vince was there watching, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" Like they had like a meeting after that to try to figure out, okay, we're in big trouble, right? That's how much talent that they had individually, right? Like it's just they're young, right? We haven't been playing since 2012, right? We're trying to we're way older than these guys, and those guys are just super fast, super super accurate, amazing, like just one-on-one raw talent. Right. So kind of watching them play throughout prelims and kind of going into the semis, and we were watching them play. It's like, oh my God. And knowing the history that they had, we were like, okay, we have to kind of figure out what we need to do with these guys. Right. So I think we recognized and accepted the fact that, in a one-on-one type of situation, they're going to beat us. Right. So what we needed to do is we had to try to find a way to be able to kind of outplay them, like strategy wise, and and maybe and hope that they don't have that level of teamwork in play, and they just kind of rely on their raw talent. So what we ended up doing is we kind of set up like a gauntlet in one part of the maze and in the tower, and just really had them take it to us, right? And the idea was just to kind of hold that spot and make them come to us, and see how, and just kind of rely on our teamwork and communication to see how that would play out. And we played them in the first game and they beat us. I think that set was really strong. It was a much stronger set. And they beat us by like 400 or 500 points. I remember, if I can remember, in that game. And we were thinking going into the second game, it's like, okay, well, we thought that it was, they didn't beat us based on, the raw skill. I think we just had a weaker pack set. So we were thinking, okay, well, what do you want to do like this next set? Like, what if they spread it out? Like we're gonna have a really good set. And I think like Ramiro and Nick and Vince, and we were like, let's take it back. Let's have them come back to us. I think that they have big enough egos that they're gonna think that they won based on their talent, not so much the packs. It's like, okay, let's try it. Let's set up, and if they spread out, then we'll kind of figure what we're gonna do from there. But otherwise, hopefully they come and take it to us, right? So in the second game, we went back to our spots. I did a bit of an adjustment, and they came back and just went head to head against us, and we really kind of bottlenecked them. In the back area and the front area, they couldn't really do anything, and you could feel the momentum like completely shift. I remember like I think it was like Vamp or somebody, like within the first 5 seconds of the game, immediately he got tagged, and I think at that point he knew that, okay, we're in trouble, right? And basically we played out the game, and when that game finished, right, we're walking back to the airlock, I hear this slam, right? I had no idea what the heck happened, right? And then we were kind of going down, and I felt good. We felt good that we did really well, and we went down. Scores came up, and then kind of like looked at it and just like, oh wow, we won by like 100 and some odd points, and we beat this team, and everyone was. I remember like everybody in the lobby was like just shell shocked. Like they had no idea. Like they thought Team Phoenix was going to win. Like all the French guys, right? And they were like, what just happened, right? And I think we were the only ones that were cheering, and you guys were probably cheering as well. But like I just remember like it was just us. We were just celebrating. We were so happy. And then later on, I found out that bang apparently was somebody that just hit the wall. One of the French guys,
he
punched the wall, and then he kind of went down to his knees and he started crying.
Yeah,
and I was like, holy cow! But I think it was just ultimately the reason why we beat them is we just outplayed, like we out strategized them. We stuck to the plan. We played a very strategic type of setup, and they just came right into it. And they weren't. I don't think they were disciplined enough to kind of stay with their target. They would come in, they would get shot like 3 times, and they would leave. And then someone else would come in, get shot like 2 or 3 times, and they would leave. And then as they're leaving, you're getting pickup tags from these guys, right? So it was just a rotation of these guys coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And I think it just shows how much, even as out of shape as we were, right, and out of practice as we were, we were able to beat this team just based on their raw talent. We were able to beat them based on the strategy that we had in place. And I think a lot of that strategy, was Nick, Ramiro, Matt, Spam kind of came up with that, and it worked really, really well, right? And it was not something that we're used to playing as well, right? And for all of us, I'm pretty sure it kind of felt uncomfortable playing in those areas, but I'm sure that at the same time, those guys are not used to playing in that type of setup as well, right? So it made them even more uncomfortable. That was a fun tournament.
Yep.
And obviously you came out on top, so very successful for you.
Yeah.
And then I guess latest or last tournament that we want to talk about is WLC 2019. How was that experience for you?
San Jose. Yeah. Awesome tournament. It was I think the team that was me, Adam, Justin, and we teamed up with the NRH guys, Sifu, Mo, Sector, Andrea, and Ricky, who, by the way, had an injured foot.
Oh, yeah.
So he was playing soccer, I think, like a couple of weeks before the tournament, and he heard a snap, right? On the bottom of his foot. He injured it's called plantar fasciitis, right? Okay. So that is not easy. Like when you have an injury like that, it takes weeks to recover from. So kind of going to that tournament, so glad we have an alternate, right? He kind of gave us the bad news and says, like I can't even walk, right? And he was kind of telling us the story, like what he did. And I was like, oh yeah, I know that. I know what that is, right? A lot of runners have that, right? And it's like you stress your feet so much that it just snaps. And we were sure that we were pretty confident at the time that he wasn't going to be able to play, right? Or even walk, right? And kind of going into the tournament, we had to, situate ourselves around Ricky and basically strategically place him into games that would minimize his mobility against teams that we knew that, okay, these teams here, they may not move as much. So let's just kind of hold a spot and do your best to try to kind of hold and do your best to try not to get overwhelmed, right? And we would kind of like position, Sector or Sifumo around him. And it seemed to work. He played really well on an injured foot. We had a center to play at. I don't know if NRH was still open at that time.
I don't think so.
I think they shut down, right? But so we were in practice. We weren't sure how Sifu or Sector were going to do. Andrea was already playing. She was kind of like living in California at the time.
California, yeah.
And Ricky had an injured foot. So going into that tournament, we had an idea, like our only competition was the Western Has-Beens, right? Which is a combination of Mesa and some of the Californians, the guys from Cali, and I think Memnock was on that team as well from Denver.
Yeah.
So we kind of looked at them as our only competition because we didn't have a French team, and the USA team dropped out, and the other USA team was there, right? But we were more with Ryan, but we were more kind of keeping our eye on that Western team, so the tournament played out. We had a weird type of like, how do we play our alternates? Like we're all we had to put our egos. We all had to agree to put our egos aside. And agree to kind of sit out, right? And the plan that we had was like we played like 6 prelim games, I think, right? And and everyone would sit out a prelim game, right? And except for going into the last prelim game, the person that was scoring the highest would sit again that last prelim game, so it would sit out twice, right? But then what that would mean is that in playoffs and finals, they would play every single game. So I was kind of like Adam came with that strategy, and it's like, okay, we all agree, we set expectations. It wasn't a matter of you're not good or anything like that. It's just the fairest way to be able to do this, right? And then as we went into
talent in that team too.
So So basically, I was kind of like the floater, right? So basically, whoever sat, I had to take their spot. So I was playing so many different roles in that tournament. It was crazy. I would be like supporting Adam, and I would be supporting Justin, and I would be supporting, so I'd be like all over that arena, supporting different positions, throughout the entire tournament, just because, we had a system that was set up to kind of support each other, right? That was a strategy. When we went into semis, I think Adam basically decided to, because based on his score, I think he came first overall in prelims. He played every single game, and then in semis, we played against the Phoenix team, I think, and they took it down. They took it to the floor, the first game, and they played in this little, small little kind of mini crow's nest area in the floor, and it was just me and Adam, and like their whole team was down there. We didn't know what they were doing. They had some weird strategy, right? And so we were like down there, me and Adam was just playing against them, and then we're containing them, keeping them in this little area while Sector is kind of like behind shooting everybody in the back, right? And which is great. Like that was he saw the opportunity, right? And I think he won the game there. But that was like the first game, and then the second game it kind of like got back to normal. We went upstairs and we played up there, and we beat the that Phoenix team, and then we played the Western Has-Beens in finals. And I could tell you that, like, and just kind of looking at how they, and because there was mostly like Mesa guys on that team. Scooby was on there, Blaze was on there. So like playing those guys, knowing how we played against them in the past, right? We kind of figured that, we might get to them mentally and then say, okay, well, we're going to play you now. Like they might shut down. Right. But, surprisingly, they didn't. They played a really smart game. Like Scooby was on the ramp. He was communicating. They won that first game, by a lot. And then in the second game, we won, but it wasn't by a lot. We kept it. We kept it close. We ended up winning overall, but it was a very, very close tournament. It was the first time I was like kind of looking. It's like, wow, these guys they figured it out, right? They figured out how to get that monkey off their back and not, let themselves get in their own way. And if we continue to play tournaments, like I could see those guys getting better and better. Like they finally kind of figured that, that mental block, figured out how to kind of work through that mental block. And they were tough. They were tough. And if, they were easily the second best team there. Right. I don't, just the teamwork that they had was phenomenal. Like they were just communicating and, they had their position set up and they gave us a run for our money in that first game. I don't know what they would have done in the second game. They could have spread it out. Maybe we probably had a better set in the second game. But it was a tough finals. Yeah.
It seems like Redmond was saying on a podcast that this team was prepared. They knew exactly what they were going to do.
Yeah.
To play against you guys, so they gave you a good challenge.
Yeah. They
okay.
were
So this kind of completes your career. I think we could have spent like hours and hours on end talking about every single side tournaments, because we've mostly covered like WLCs, some side tournaments, NACs. But on the back of that, you literally have like dozens and dozens and dozens of tournaments win yearly. You know what I mean? So very storied.
I used to keep track of all of my tournaments. I used to how we used to have the LQ Center the LQ Arena website before it got shut down. There was like a players wiki that they had, and I actually used it. I went there and tracked every single side tournament I ever played. If someone still has it, it's still there. Like, and I all the way up until it got shut down. So like it was at that point after that I stopped counting. But yeah.
Well, I have to get off because I had to get off since a while ago. Before I go, one thing that I really remember is once we went to Toronto. So then we're going over at Corwin's house I don't remember. Just I had to go get something before tournament. I walk in where me, Elvin, Max Payne, and I think there was Reinhardt.
Louis,
Ghost. It was Ghost. So we walk in the kitchen. We go past the kitchen. I'm looking at his kitchen table. I'm like, what the fuck? So I walk back, and I'm looking at literally hundreds of trophies and medals and everything from Laser Quest. I'm like, how is that even possible? It was just a memorable moment. Just from there, I was like, oh my god.
Trophies.
Yeah, I was like, this guy. And this was years ago. This is before, it's been a while. So, you stacked so many. It was just, I played with you, and it was an honor, and I'm happy to do this interview with you.
Yeah.
And hope to talk to you soon. I'm really sorry. It's Saturday. I have stuff to do, and I'll keep on trying listening. But you could
well, before you go, do you want to see them? So it's moved from my kitchen table to one of our guests' rooms. So when we have guests, they get to stay in the room. So let me see if I can. All right.
He has a room.
I have a guest room. When they have guests, my mother-in-law stays over. I have her stay in this room so you can see, it's nice. You got a TV there, old TV. Yep. Some pictures, right? There's a couple trophies over there. But then behind me, these are all the trophies. Yeah. And there's more there's more down there, right? So you can see, like, I don't know, like if you look at it, I mean, this is you can see this is our 2010 Bass at the Beach.
Bass at the Beach, yeah.
Yep. There's like, this is a Mississauga. This is a second place trophy here. This is our WLC 2010 here trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And then over here, I got all of my NAC medals.
Nice.
All the NAC medals, and then the finals, regional medals, NAC medals. And then from like all my these are my obstacle course racing medals, and these are all of my triathlon medals here.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
It's insane. There you go. So they never really went anywhere.
There's probably trophies that you got rid of also that probably not even like,
there's probably we did. I got rid of, like, so when we were running tournaments in the GTA area, to kind of save Justin a little bit of money, we basically took old trophies that we won and recycled them. We just took the nameplate off. Someone had like one of my first place trophies from the Michigan 3-man somewhere, right?
Also,
so we just basically took the nameplate off and we just printed new nameplates. It's much cheaper than to buy like $40 trophies, and that's what we ended up doing, right? Just recycled old trophies.
And probably you've won trophies that there's like individual trophies you gave to the person that traveled and stuff like that. And so
I've got some of my some people have my trophies out there. So
oh my god! All right, I'm gonna get off. Nice talking to you. I'll try to. You can cut my camera off. I'll try to stay on and listen to a bit when I come back doing my stuff.
Thanks, Louis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. See you guys soon. Huh?
Have
Bye.
a good one.
All right, I'm gonna hide Phoenix, and here we go. Okay, excellent. So moving on, we're gonna move on to probably your favorite segment that we're gonna do on this podcast.
This is this list thing that you want me to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because to preface this, I have to say probably to the audience that you're not known to do like top 5 lists, and you're known to be very humble. But this is your time. Like let's hear real talk. So, in your opinion, if we would have a top 5 players of all time, who would make that list?
Okay. I had no time to prepare for this, right? You know what I was doing before this? I was riding my bike for 5 hours and 20 minutes. Okay, so top 5 players of all time, based on the players that I've played and what they've done, I don't know if I'm going to rank them. So I'm not going to include myself. I think definitely, I think Adam is there at Truth Excalibur. He's definitely, up there. Like just even from a longevity standpoint, right? So we talk about, he's told me, he was kind of opening up the podcast saying how I've been playing for so long. Adam has been playing almost as long as I have. So I've been playing 25 years. He's probably played like 24 years, right? So it's about the same. And, he's been on and off, right? But anytime that he's ever played, he's dominated. He's done very, very well, right from the beginning. I think that pretty much from 99, because I remember him playing at NRH at NACs in 99, and like he was just killing everybody for Team Brampton, and like it was basically from there on in, he's just gotten better, and for him to be able to also take his talent, his experience, move to a brand new Toronto East team, and take them to a regional win against a lot of strong teams out there in the East, says something about his leadership and his ability to be able to teach others and motivate others, and and make them believe that they can do it, right? So I think that and I play with him. Like when he started playing again, we were practicing for WLC. Like he has this natural ability to be able to just if he wants to, he can shut you down, right? And I could feel that in some of the practice games that we play. He's just he's going at maybe like 70%, 80%, but then when he decides to turn it on, right? Like you can't tag him at all, right? Like he's got that. It's this force field that you just that he has. So you just don't have the ability. You can't. No matter what you do, you're not going to be able to take him down. And I think it's just his understanding of the game, and his confidence in being able to, go into certain positions without worry of being shut down and just, and being the first to kind of like, to strike. He'll open up a target and then he'll, and as you go for it, he'll get you down, right? Through one of your other targets. So his understanding of that in that perspective is, is not a lot of people have that.
Right.
And he's always thinking it's like he's thinking like 2 steps ahead. Right. So it's not even like in a team game. He's not even worried about the person that he's playing against. He's worrying about the second or the third person he's about to go after. Right. So like he's always thinking ahead. And, and with these Laser Quest packs, it's hard to think that way because it's just such a struggle to tag these packs. Right. But when you get into the new packs like they have in Whitby, right, where you can like literally take a pack down in 1 or 2 shots, it elevates your game and it elevates your thinking. His ability to be able to, manage his targets and know where everybody's at is something that, it takes a long time to develop and it's not something you can just quickly learn. It just, it goes without saying that there's not a lot of, there are not a lot of players out there like Adam that can, just turn it up whenever he, wants to. Like he'll take like a 5-year hiatus and then come back and then start winning tournaments. So, like he's definitely in my mind one of the best that's out there. Okay. The next one, that's one. I have to give you 4 more, right? Okay. So the next one I would say is Vince Enemy. Okay. So I think I first met him in 1998 at VDM, around there. I met him at VDM, and he's a lefty, and he has this understanding of the game. I think he's just naturally talented. I think whatever sport or anything that you have him do, he'll just excel at it. He plays at a very elite level. In laser tag, I kind of call him like I kind of refer him to like the Sith Lord. The Sith, the Jedi of Laser Quest, because he can make you do silly things. He can manipulate you in such a way that he'll make you expose your targets. He'll just move one way and then make you do something else, and then boom, he'll get your target down. So like I've seen him do it in games where and he's got this really quick reaction, and he understands. Like he plays a really strong mental game when he's going against other opposing players. Like he is so in tuned and aware as to, what's going on. And he's another person that very similar to Adam, where, I haven't seen him really have a misstep. He'll take years off and then come back and start and come first overall and win tournaments.
Right.
I think that, if from an NAC standpoint, I think if he had, a stronger supporting cast behind him, other than Houston, right? But like say, for example, if he was like in San Antonio, I think he would have had a couple of NACs underneath him if he was,
Definitely.
It's just, you just can't do it on your own. It's very difficult at that level. Yeah, he's somebody that I have never really been able to kind of figure out. A lot of strategies are kind of built around him, and rightfully so, right? You want to play to your strengths. But I've also seen him kind of on his own and just wrecking everybody. He's the type of guy that, like you have like 20 people shooting at him, and I would be shooting at him, right? And he'll spot you right away. Like he's just so focused and knows where everybody's at any given time. It's not something that I've ever seen before. The third person I would say is Kyle.
Yes.
When I met Kyle for the first time, he was actually shorter than Adam. He was shorter than Gazpacho. Like he must have been like 12 years old. His dad was driving him around to different tournaments. Like he's from Rochester, right? So like they were the first kind of friends that we really kind of met, like in Brampton. The Rochester guys, they would come and play with us, and they were sponges, right? And he's definitely somebody that has continued to remain strong in his play style, over so many years. I remember him playing for, VB, and just, I think it was at Gwinnett, and winning like every game for his team. Yeah. Like he was just absolutely destroying, like beating, like just he also understands the game very well, and he's very humble too, right? Like he's definitely, he's a team player. He knows, like if we say, okay, if you say, like, Ryan, try to play this spot here, he'll do it, right? Like he doesn't have an ego, and his consistency in his performance has always been strong. He hasn't had a lot of off. He hasn't been off, like he hasn't had a hiatus like Adam or Vince. He's been consistently playing, and I've never really kind of seen him dip down in his performance. Like every tournament that I've ever seen him, he's always in the top 5. At the side tournament level, as well as at the corporate level, NAC level, right? And that's very difficult to do when you don't have that team behind you to help you kind of push through, right? To win a game for your team, and like first place, and then the rest are like 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, right? That's not easy to do, because you're competing with the other teams that are like chasing down your team, right? You don't have the same opportunity to score those points, so he finds a way to get it done. And definitely, I played tournaments with Ryan, and I've won some tournaments with him, and he's very humble guy. Like we'll win a tournament, and like he's always, to this day, he's always finding ways to kind of better himself and to learn, which is a great thing. He's never content with his skill.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, 3.
I think the next person I would say would be Sifu Mo.
Okay.
NRH. From at a corporate level, I think that he doesn't do a lot of side tournaments, but at a corporate level, he's always consistently at the top of his team. And what's interesting about that is that he's not NRH's top pack player at all. Right. So whatever pack that he's been given, probably the 3rd, 4th, 5th pack or whatever, like he is able to make it work for his team, and and place really, really high for his team. He is smart. Like I've just kind of, I didn't really know him as well in terms of his, how he kind of thought the game played out, and his idea, or his kind of how his outlook of the game is, until we played WLC in San Jose last year. And he is a very, like I see him as very cerebral. Like he knows how to manage points. He knows where to go. He's probably one of the best shoulder sensor taggers I've ever seen. Like he can take a pack that can't tag shoulders, and he'll tag it. He'll find a way to be able to do it. Very accurate. And he is a very incredibly smart player, and he uses that intelligence and his skill and combines it, to come out, on top in many games. He was at our WLC, like, having even random packs, like he was able to figure it out. Right. And for a lot of people that have certain roles, if I'm a top pack player, that's all I ever do. Right. When you are faced with playing random packs and you don't know what you're going to get, it's very difficult to adjust. But I found him, very easily adaptable to whatever packs that he got, and he played it to its strengths, and, it definitely showed. And again, from an NAC perspective, he's very decorated in that sense, and I think he's one of the anchors that really helped NRH be as successful as they were.
Okay, that's 4.
Last one. Okay, I would say, what's that?
It's interesting because, and I'm really curious to see what you're going to come with, because usually you round out that list, right? But now you can't pick yourself, so I'm curious to see who you're going to pick.
I would say, I'd say Nick. So Nick is knowing, like, Nick's been playing for a long time as well, and he is both very talented, like I think he's kind of like an athletic background as well. He's a coach. He coaches a basketball team, so he understands strategy. He understands, leadership. He analyzes and studies this game to a level that I think not a lot of people do. Right. I remember talking to him, like at, we were talking at, at WLC in 2017, And one of the things that he said that he did in preparation for it, because he didn't have a center, was that he would like watch videos of the opposing players, and he would watch it over and over and over again to see how they played, see what their go-to moves were, and learn it, right? And I mean, I guess that comes in, I guess that's kind of like the same thing that comes when you're studying like basketball and you're watching other players and kind of seeing what the other coach, the opposing players, what their strategies are. Like he applies that in Laser Quest, and he puts a lot of effort into understanding who his competitors are, and then and the other thing is that like a lot of people can do that, but when the tournament starts and that all goes out the window, but he executes on it and he knows exactly, okay, this person plays this way, so I'm going to play. He'll change his play style in a way that will maximize his ability to be able to get that tag on that person. And it has been very, very successful for him. Like at least at in tournaments where we have gotten to the finals, right? Or he's gotten into the finals. He's always in like top 2, top 3. He's always there, right? And I think that I would attribute that to his understanding of who he's up against, and and also his understanding of the game itself. And he's always been consistently a top player, like from like the very beginning. He's a student of this game, and it's always been, I think, from my perspective, has always been a strength of his, because a lot of people don't study this game as they go in, they know this player, they kind of know how they play, right? But they don't go as far as studying how they play, and then being able to apply and come up with counter moves and come up with a strategy to be able to overcome that person's playing ability. And he has that ability and it's been very effective.
Oh yes.
And I can, and regardless of like, if he doesn't have a center that's around him, if he, that mindset is what will always give him the upper edge against any team that he ever decides he wants to, to play against, or any competitor that he ever wants to play against.
Okay. Very solid list. I was very curious to see who you would put in the spot, but yeah, very cool. Okay. So moving on, a little bit slightly different take on the question. Who would you consider to be the top 5 in their prime?
Prime.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the first would be Ray Capri.
Okay.
In his prime, he was unstoppable, right? Like even at the corporate level, like in corporate tournaments, he was always like the top 3 on his team. He has been consistent. He's very much like Nick. He understands the game. I don't know if he studies the game as much as Nick does, but he was definitely a competitor. And any tournament that I played against him back in the day, like if we're talking about like early 2000s, I've always seen him, dominating. Right. And it's just raw talent that he has. Like he just goes out and he can outplay basically anybody. He's fast. He's accurate. He was fast. He was very, very accurate. I think that even like now, like I think the last time I played Ray was, like heads up would be like Ohio. Right. And he's kind of incorporated a lot of, knowledge and strategy into his game as well, right? I mean, like we played in Ohio at the Epicenter, and he did phenomenal there.
Yes.
Right. And no one would have expected that, right?
Right.
So he also knows how to manage his targets, and but like back in the days, like there's not a lot of people that are out there that that could beat him or to be as good as him. So I would put him as one of my top 5 prime in their prime. Ronan would be another person.
Yes.
Definitely. And he definitely would like, I think there was a stretch in like the early 2000s where he just could not be defeated.
Yeah. He won everything.
And like there were teams that would be formed specifically to try to beat his team. The teams that he would play against, like he would play, that he would form, and they couldn't do it. And I think there's this one time. The one time I think that they were able to beat him was like it was a Winter Slam. I think Adam was on that team, Nick was on that team, and they finally beat them. Force, I think, was on that team as well. But up until that point, he was like, it doesn't matter. Like him and Darkstorm, like those guys, they would just do the circuit across North America, playing all these side tournaments and winning every single thing. Yeah. Like all the way, and we're talking about like the biggest tournaments, like Vegas, the Vegas 5-man, like they would be going out there and just dominating it, and they made a name for themselves, and I'm pretty sure that other people may have kind of recognized that as well. I recognize it for sure.
Right.
So he was just he was really good at his craft. He understood the game as well, and I think where he could have excelled, and again it would have been at the corporate level playing at NACs, but like from a side tournament, like he was. He was untouchable. Yeah, like no one can figure it out. No one can figure it out.
Okay, that's 2.
Okay, the next one would be Blair Decoy.
Definitely.
So definitely in his prime. And I could pinpoint where he started to get really, really good.
Sure.
It was 98.
Okay.
Like it was close to like 98. Like after NACs, he basically just found another gear and he turned it up, and it was just, and there was no looking back. From 98 to 99 to 2000, like he was just, an unstoppable machine. Like, and he's a lefty too, right? So, very cerebral, understood the game. He was a lefty, and he would always score like the top of the team, on our NAC teams, like, in Brampton throughout the years. And definitely he was a great team player as well, but his one-on-one skills were like amazing. And so from at the NAC level and at the side tournament level, I played on teams with him, many teams, I played many side tournaments with him, and he would just know when to turn it up.
Right.
And, and he never crumbled under pressure. Like, so I think that like he would be in his prime is a very, very dangerous player.
I call this the Blair category because to me he exemplifies, in his prime he was absolutely insane, untouchable.
Yeah, the Blair effect.
That's it. 2 more.
2 more. Hocus Pocus.
Okay.
I think where he really excelled was probably like 98, 99 time frame. And I get to practice with him. I was in Phoenix. Yeah, I played him. He is like the real deal. He was super accurate, super fast. I think in 98 at regionals, he went undefeated.
Yes.
And they were playing 15-minute games. Like he went under. He won every single game. I think it was in Denver, the regionals, and Phoenix won. But like that was where he really was starting to go on the rise. And then in 1999, when I was in Phoenix and playing it, like he was just untouchable. Like he was like somebody that I couldn't. He would always get you down every single time. He was so accurate. And he had a knowledge of the game that all like it's very similar to to Adam. Like he would basically be thinking about his next tag, right? Because as soon as you get you down, he's already like walking to the next target. Like so again, not a lot of people have that skill. But when he was playing, he a lot of people knew who he was. And he definitely didn't disappoint when he was playing in tournaments and scoring like huge against like the second place person on there. Yeah. How many more do I got? One more.
You're almost.
So it's Trixie. So I'm gonna go into Europe. Good so choice. Phil's amazing. He's been consistent. I think like probably at around in the early 2000s. He was like the Ronin of Europe, right? Yeah. He went on a 20 tournament win streak or something like that. Like for years, like whatever tournament he played, and some of these are like ELCs. Like some of these are very competitive tournaments. They weren't like he didn't sandbag any of the tournaments that he like. So he I think he's another lefty, right? Yeah. And he basically just went on a tear, and it didn't matter who was on his team. He again, was, very very accurate, very smart, very fast. Anytime that, and we thought that, what, Trixie comes over to, let's see how he kind of does when he comes here. And, and he just does just as well. I remember that he came here back in 2001 and we played in IEG in Mississauga, and he was in the finals with us.
Yes.
Right. And it wasn't the players that, if he wasn't, because if he was dominating out in Europe, and a lot of people would say that, okay, well, maybe it's the players aren't as good. Well, he was coming here and beating players here, like really top elite players here. So, for him to be able to kind of come across the border, come across the pond, and play here and perform, incredibly well, says something about his ability to be able to play, his skill, his ability to be able to adapt. He plays multiple roles in Europe. They don't believe in pack numbers. They don't have I'm a top pack player. So he is a multi-role type of player as well. So I would put him as, top 5 for myself, in their prime.
Solid choice.
Yeah.
And I know right now things are kind of at a standstill because of COVID and no one's really playing. But do you have an opinion? Is there current players that you want to shout out? Like, who would be your top 5 current players?
Top 5. Okay, well, Justin absolutely for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So he's come a long way. He's always been a good player. But I think in the last 2 to 3 years, and I played a lot of tournaments with him.
Yes.
He's really kind of just coming on his own, and his understanding of the game is at a completely different level. The confidence that he has. And I'll tell you, for example, when we were playing, we were getting ready for WLC, he was filming in Halifax. There's no Laser Quest Center there at all.
The closest is Montreal.
For months, right? The last time we played was earlier in that year, February, and then he left, right? And we're like, oh man, what's gonna happen, right? And it's just his knowledge of the game and the discipline that he has when he plays, and his ability to be able to also manage points and know where everybody's at, overcomes anything. Even if you don't have a center, he in the finals, he was the top plus minus on our team. He was the top scorer, he was the top performer on our team, and and he had the least amount of practice with Laser Quest packs. I'm sure with the NRH guys, they probably played with Ricky with his packs that he has at his, but he had nothing, right? He was working at the gym. As long as he was able to keep his cardio up, he understood the game and was confident enough about the game that he knew that he would do well, and we knew that he would do well as well. And so, and that's just continuously building on it, on top of it, right? So he understands that, you don't need to win every single game in prelims. What really counts is playoffs. And, I've seen so many times where he takes the opportunity in prelims to really kind of scope out his area, to scope out, the play, to scope out, the best places that he can put himself in. And then he'll try a couple of things here and there. He may not win the game. He may not come top on the team, but by the time we get into playoffs, he puts it all together, and then you'll see him shine. Absolutely. Right. And that's what you need in a successful teammate. It's someone in a team that'll help your team be successful. He's been able to take teams that, with with players that have never, won tournaments and won tournaments with them. So, he's a really good strategist. I remember one year we played in Vegas, and came up with the idea. I think we were playing against a Texas. We were playing Enemy's team, Blue Flames team, Enemy, Blue Flame, Ray. It was a good team.
Team, yeah.
If we went heads up against him, we would have lost, right? But he came up with the strategy. Okay, let's play under the left tower.
Yeah.
Right. And it was me and Ryan and Kamikaze, and we were what do you mean play under the left tower? He's yeah, let's play in the left tower. Let's just have them come to us, right? And in a 2-team game, right, you don't know how long that's going to last, right? It could just be a standoff, right? They want to go in the tower. We're at the bottom of the left tower, and it's just ultimately who gives in first, right?
Right.
And it was it was his idea to say, if we play here, have them take it to us, we're going to win the game, because they're just going to file in and we'll tag them, and they're going to file back out, right? And that's basically, he's very innovative in his way of coming up with these types of, strategies, these unorthodox strategies that no one would really kind of think about. And, he really helped to kind of evolve, the game of laser tag or laser quests in the team type of environment, right? And probably some of that comes from, he's done a lot of cross system play as well. So he's probably taken a lot of those concepts and applied it into Laser Quest. But currently, I would see that he is like number one right now. That's playing. Second one, I would say Andrea Blue Flame.
Okay.
Right. She's definitely been consistent. She has continued to remain in practice. Like, she did really well at WLC. I think she recently won a tournament. Like, she won a tournament in California, or she won it with the Ohio guys.
Possible. I don't know. I haven't been keeping track, but okay, possible.
But she does very, very well. And she's been playing for a long period of time. Definitely motivated.
Right.
Like, I've never met anybody as charged and amped up as Andrea. She's got so much energy. I don't know where she gets it from. But like, but definitely she's found a way to be able to kind of channel that into, the way that she plays. And, she can, outperform a lot of people, right? In a one-on-one situation. So I see her up there as, top 5 current. Wolverine, another one.
Yes, Andy.
Right, Andy, very smart. I've played a couple of tournaments with him. Great communicator. He knows how to pick his spots. Again, I think he also won a tournament out there in California with Psycho, and so he's out there, and I think that and he's been playing this game for a while as well, and he's also one of those guys that's just remained active. He does like P90 type of exercises, so like he's trying, he's remaining in shape, and I think that there's a piece of that definitely will help. But I see that he's been very consistent in the tournaments that I've gone to, that I've seen him at, and I think that top 5 for sure. Next one, Drew, I would say, is currently right. He recently won a tournament in Montreal. He practices with us, right? Definitely an amazing dog fighter. He's beginning to really use his height to his advantage. But he always is like he's always performing well in any side tournament that that he performs, that he plays in. He doesn't play in a lot of side tournaments, but the ones like locally, and there's a lot of us that are like Adam and I and Justin are playing like, and like he's performing pretty consistently and near the top in the majority of the side tournaments we have up in this area. Like he did pretty good in Ohio as well. I think that, and he's getting better. He's just practicing with us. He's getting harder and harder to tag. And he studies the game as well. Like you could tell, like when you tag him, he's just talking to himself, and he's like, hey, like
thinking about it.
That was a bad move. I should have did something. I should have did it differently. So he's definitely, he criticizes himself during the game, but it definitely helps because in the next game, he does something a little bit different. Right. So he's trying different things. Right. And he's, he's upset a lot of people, like in terms of like just his performance, like people, wow, I didn't expect that happening. Right. So, he's up there. And then the last one, I think currently, I'll just, one person that really kind of impressed me, playing him a couple times already, I would say is currently, and I think he's still currently playing, and, Vanquisher, right?
Oh yeah.
Phoenix. So that guy is like a dark horse, right? Yeah. So, played him in Vegas, and, played with him, right, in Vegas, saw him at WLC, and I remember when we played that team, with the Phoenix team, he was in WLC, like that guy, like he was scoring top on that team against us. Like anybody that can shut Adam down from his spot and make him, and basically make him leave and play that area uncontested is somebody that's good. right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And these are random packs, right? So like, and he did it like consistently. So I think he's a bit of a dark horse. Not a lot of people know him, but I've seen him and I've played with him and I played against him enough to know that, he can give anybody a run for his money. For their money, regardless of, the setting, regardless of the pack, he's really smart in his play.
Okay.
So it's top 5, right? Okay.
Yep. You did it.
Okay.
You just named 15 players for top 5 list. So really, I was like, if anything,
there's
more achievement.
There's so many more people that are out there. Like I would put Andy up there, and there's Prime. Like there's so many. Like I didn't prepare for this at all. You're just whatever's popping into my head, right? So it's like
it's all good.
That's right.
Okay, so I want to move on to the next section. You're widely known as the nicest guy in laser tag, right? So what I want to segment into is, where does that sportsmanship spirit come from? Because as far as we talked, you don't have that like a background in sports or anything of the sort. So is that just your personality?
I think it's my personality, really, when it comes down to it. Right? At first, so not a lot of people will believe that. At first, I wasn't that type of sportsmanship type person at the beginning. Like I said, when I first started playing, it wasn't really a welcoming type of environment, right? You had a couple people that would help you out, but you basically had to fend for yourself and prove to the rest of the guys that you were actually good, right? So you would go in, you would get beat down, and you have a choice: either forget this, I don't want to play this anymore, or you would you take that as a learning opportunity and get better at it, right? And over time, right, then you kind of get welcomed into that circle, and I kind of got into that mindset as well as other new players come. So I thought at the time, I was young back then, it was back in 1995, that that's the way for people to kind of rise through the ranks, is to make them fight for it, right? Just have them grind through it. And that's how I was at the beginning. I was like, okay, I'm gonna play you, I'm gonna beat you down, and when you get better, then I'll bring you into our circle, kind of thing, right?
Yes.
But that didn't last very long. Like it got to a point where I got to know some of the guys, and I got to realize that that's probably not the right way to grow your base and to build relationships with other people. And I just kind of learned on my own, that there's got to be a different way to welcome other people in and to help them out. And I think it was around 96 is when that mindset kind of changed for me. And it's
pretty
kind
early
of been
on.
like that for a while. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of been like that for a while, and also kind of like and it just kind of reaffirmed it as well. But after, like, even several years later, when I had that chat with Dave, and just kind of it helped me to kind of realize why I do this. Right? It isn't just to be the best in the world, and it's to kind of build a community. It's to build relationships. It's to it's to help others, right? And I kind of taken that on as a, even in my current career, professional career, is the same thing, right? It's to help people become better versions of themselves by sharing everything that I've kind of learned throughout the years. And, that's kind of become my reality now, right? So a lot of things that have kind of come out throughout the years that have just pointed me in that direction of really not being like, it's being a nice guy, but also, it just at the end of the day, it's laser tag, right? Like, what are we fighting for here, right? So it's something that people enjoy. It's a kid's game, and we play it, right? So let's have fun, right? And it's the experience, right? And it's the idea of helping others to be successful, and building that base, right? So that's kind of like where it kind of came from, right? But It didn't start like that at the beginning.
So I've heard, but I've never experienced it firsthand. So I can only judge from my experiences. But it's interesting because from having the podcast with Adam with Excalibur, he was kind of saying like how he had this tag persona of being like an asshole, like very intimidating, and he made that work to his advantage. And then you get to speak to him on a personal level, and he's a real cool guy. He's really
not
nice
like
guy.
that at all. But Adam plays a very mental game. It's his idea, his strategy is to get into your head.
Right.
Even when we practice, he does it to me as well. right? He's like, oh yeah, it's all pack or whatever, right? And eventually you begin to, okay, maybe it is the pack, right? But we've had but that's how he is, right? Like he's got that kind of swagger, right? And it works for some people, right? And that's how you get the edge in some cases. Like, Laser Quest can only take you so far from a physical play, but then eventually it turns when you get into get to that elite level, then it becomes more of a mental aspect, right? And we've seen it happen with even full teams that we played, like Mesa, for example. It's just a mental block that that they kind of get themselves into anytime that they were ever to play us, right? So, and it's just a matter of kind of breaking through that. It's a very psychological type of game when you get to a certain level in this sport, in any sport, really. It's just that can make or break you, and whoever has like a stronger mindset, is strong mentally, are the ones that can kind of overcome these types of speed bumps.
And obviously, what I kind of want to segment into is, even though you've never had that persona, you've always been yourself, and you've always been very like sportsman-like. Arguably, you've had just as much success as Redmond. Your career speaks for itself. So what's the main factor that contributed to such longevity and such amount of success at Laser Quest?
I think it's what a lot of people see is that I've been very successful in a lot of things that I've done. But what a lot of people don't really see is that I failed just as much, if not more, in the tournaments that I've played in. It just hasn't been highlighted, right? So, I've probably lost more tournaments than I've ever won, right? And that's going from NACs to side tournaments, so you name it, right? I think that, for me, every tournament that I've ever competed in that, maybe if I didn't win, as an example, I've always taken it as an opportunity to learn, to say, okay, well, what happened? What went wrong? What can I change? What can I adjust? And kind of build from that, right? And, I've kind of used that as a means of, that's how I kind of think about in life, in anything that I do professionally, right? In my professional career, as well as also like even through athletics, like when I do like triathlons and I don't do so well in a race, right? I tried to kind of, look at it and just self-reflect. You have to kind of look in the mirror and say, okay, well, what went wrong? What could I have done differently? And then just focusing on that, right? And ultimately, as you learn from it, right? It's all this journey is all about learning, right? You get to a point where, you are able to, overcome and minimize, the mistakes that you would have done. And, you kind of learn from it, right? But then, new opportunities pop up, right? And it's like, oh, what do I have to learn from that? And some people will look at that as failure, and they'll say, okay, forget it. I'm not good enough in this. I don't think I can succeed in this. I look at it as an opportunity. I welcome failure, right? Because that's my only opportunity to be able to, to learn and get better and become stronger in what I do.
All right. And also nowadays you're a lot more into fitness. So you're a lot into like Ironman, like marathon.
Yeah.
Like I have this saying that, like, we all get older, Corwin only gets fitter. You know what I mean? So how does that play into your for Laser Quest? Like how does that help you?
Well, I think that, so for Laser Quest, I actually use Laser Quest as a platform for me to really kind of keep my cardio up now.
Okay.
But really kind of getting into fitness, like, it wasn't until like after NAC was like stopped happening in 2012 that I actually started getting into these types of things. Like I started with obstacle course racing, and and then from there I went into road racing, and then from there I went to triathlons, and now I'm kind of doing Ironmans, and it's something that was new for me too. Like I lost like 20 pounds from 2012 until now, right? Just by doing all of these things. And I'll tell you a quick story about it. And the reason why I really kind of got into this is that back then, like around 2012, I kind of discovered that, I had really high cholesterol, right?
Okay.
And I thought it was I thought it was active and playing Laser Quest, and, but apparently it's genetic. It's, no matter how much I kind of, how healthy I ate, or how much I kind of exercised or at that level, right? It was just something that was not something that I could control or bring it down. So my doctor put me on something that's called Crestor, right? And Crestor is a medication to help you kind of bring your cholesterol down. And when I first started taking it, it was like, it's just your joints are sore. It's just bad. Like, it's you're feeling tired. And it was something that I was like, there's got to be, and you're on this for the rest of your life, right? So I had to make a decision at that point. It's like, do I want to do this? Like, the only way for me to get out of that is to find a way to be able to control my cholesterol. In addition to healthy eating, I have to be more active. So that's where I get into. I started getting into the obstacle course racing and all this other stuff, to a point where I was able to control my cholesterol and bring it down to the point where my doctor is like, okay, you don't need this medicine anymore, right? So he took me off of it. He's like, I've never had to do that before, but if you want to stay off of this, then basically you have to remain as active as you are for the rest of your life. So it is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle decision that I've made, to continue to do what I'm doing, until I can't do it anymore. Right. Because I don't want to rely on any type of medication to keep me alive. Right. So that's how I kind of got into this sort of stuff, like all the Ironmans and stuff. And Ironmans is not an easy thing to do, so tying that into Laser Quest, it's really kind of like just the cardio aspect of it as well. And it's helped me. I think that it's helped me become even a better player than I was before, when I wasn't as in shape. Just kind of playing in the tournaments that I've played in, and how I've kind of performed in recent tournaments, like 25 years later. I felt that it's definitely something that I was missing, the last 24 years, that I've been able to kind of pick up. Now I'm 45 now, so I'm really competing against people that are much younger than I am, right? So I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's tough. It's not easy, right? Like, there's so many people that are much faster, and I didn't realize. Like, I began to realize that when we went to Woking and played at WLC and played the French guys there, or as much as I was in shape back then, it was like these guys are so much faster, right? So it's helped me to kind of keep a bit of an edge when I play, laser tag competitively. But it's something that I don't need to do that to play laser tag. Like, I'm doing it on my own, right? So I'm just kind of complementing, both of the things that I love, together, and it's definitely helped.
Okay. One more question I have for you, and it's actually part of the question and part of statement. So people might not know this, but you are kind of like Laser Quest Live is kind of your brainchild. You were kind of like one of the first initiators to kind of try and bring Laser Quest, streams, like podcasts, like my podcast, like would never have happened if you had not, had original idea. And I think that's something that should be shouted out, and that's something that's really, really cool.
Yes.
And I also, there's a little bit of like, I'm giving you a compliment, but it's self-serving a little bit, because what I'd like to get to is like, what else could we do, like, as a community, to kind of get Laser Quest out there?
I think it's just a matter of, I think what you're doing, right, and helping, and giving, players the platform to tell their story, to tell their journey, for hopefully that other people can kind of learn from, is something that is needed in this community, right? So I don't know how many people are left in the community. I haven't been as in touch with the community, but it's definitely something that'll keep it alive and help it to grow. I think that there are other podcasts that we're doing, right now, to kind of just spark interest. And, I think it's just a matter of being able to have this, like, who knows how long it's going to be around for, right? And who knows if this opportunity if you didn't come up with this idea of, podcasting and interviewing, players, if those stories would be gone untold. Right. So you're creating, you're cataloging, you're creating a library and a history of, players that have played this game that, once it's on the internet, you can't take it back down. Right. So it's, people that, like my daughter is going to be able to watch this in, 5-6 years from now and be able to kind of see, what I went through. Right. So it's something that even I can reflect on and being able to have, other players like Adam and Nick and, Andy and those guys like on this podcast and be able to kind of tell their story gives a different perspective, because you know them well enough. Like I know them really well and I kind of know their story. But when they tell you, how they came to be in terms of Laser Quest and, their ups and downs, like these are things that you didn't know about them, right? And what their kind of perspectives are and what motivated them. So I think that it's, even for me, it's given me an opportunity to kind of know these guys a little bit better at a personal level. And then for anybody that doesn't really know us or that have heard from about us, whatever it is that we have to share, maybe that'll, inspire and give them, kind of the guidance and, and that ability to be able to kind of pursue what it is that we've done, so that they can, whether if it's Laser Quest or anything else, they can build on top of that. And we've lost Alex.
Are you still there?
Now you're back.
for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
but the streaming idea is something that I wanted to kind of put in. I think it started at WLC.
It did,
Woking,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just hey, let's try this. You got a Wi-Fi connection. We got people back in North America to want to see what's going on. And, it's a 6-hour time difference. It's probably like 3 a.m. If there's anybody that's awake, let's just stream this so that they can kind of see what's going on. And the idea of, streaming it was so it just kind of allowed us to kind of reach back home so others that were interested to knowing what was happening would be able to kind of see and witness, how, how their teams, how we were performing, across the pond. And I think it kind of started from there, right? And we were using like this platform specifically to stream it. And then, but like the podcast, I mean, that's your idea. Like you can't, I mean, I think you talked about how you've kind of, it spawned off of, Joe Rogan. That guy's funny.
Yeah, definitely.
The stuff that he talks about alien. He talks about anything, right?
He talks to anyone. That's what I love about it.
Anyone and everything, right? Yeah. Him and Joey are the best. Yeah. So, but just your concept of when you conceptualize this, I thought it was a really, really cool idea. And I always thought about, like, what would I say? Like, how would this go? Like, what could I possibly say about me that people don't know about? So even when you first kind of launched it, and that was like the Mississauga tournament, I think when you had it with Adam, right, on February 8th, that was the first, first podcast that you came up with. And I finally got around to watching, and it was really, really good content, very structured. And I think that you're doing phenomenal with this. And, you should, I'm looking forward to seeing in, the 100th podcast that you do.
Thank you. Hopefully we get there. This is the 10th anniversary, and this is why we wanted you to be on.
Oh, is that
right? Yeah. But thank you. It's really fun to do. I'll keep doing it. Basically, like, we all have real lives, and there's no monetization. Like, that's never going to be like something that's the main focus of this. But we'll keep doing this as long as people
partner with
on.
Patreon, you can make some good coin with that.
Yeah, maybe. Except I'm not like a 21-year-old girl, and anyway.
No, exactly.
Okay, we're like a little bit over 3 hours, I think, which is okay. I have 10 more questions that I'm going to ask you, and then we'll wrap up the podcast.
Okay.
These questions I have not shown to you. They're a little bit on a funny side, on the lighter side.
Well, I haven't even seen any of your questions, to be honest.
Okay.
I came back, so I didn't have no time to prepare. So.
Fair enough. Excellent. You've been doing your job so far. So we're going to start off with a question from a viewer. So this up-and-coming player called Excalibur wants to know if you can pinpoint exactly in time when he got better than you.
When he got better than me?
Yeah.
I would probably say it was around 2000, 2001.
Okay.
Like at 99, I think we were about par. Like he was starting to really
ramp it up.
Yeah, like he, I think, I don't know if he like grew 3 inches or whatever. Like he just got good. Like, and that was within a short period of time. Like when I was in Phoenix, like I didn't get a chance to play with these guys, but like from the time I was in Phoenix until, when I was, back in, Toronto, I noticed a huge difference in Adam. I think it's whether if it's because kind of going up to that point, maybe he felt that he was in my shadow, or then I left, and then this was his opportunity to really, shine. But seeing him perform at NACs in '99, and I've never seen him perform like that ever. Like even like as he was at the in '98, I knew that he was, he was in the following year. I think that's where he got better than me.
Right.
It was a really, really short period of time. I don't know what he did. I think it was just, he probably just, he just kind of dug down and just, started practicing and started to really try to understand the game a little bit better. But, it was night and day difference, from, within like a very short period of time.
So it was half a funny question and half like, like kind of like a serious question, because you've understandably or arguably have had the same amount of success throughout the years, right?
Yeah.
The way I view it is you've kind of played different roles.
Yeah.
Like he's played the destroyer, the number one, the persona.
Yeah.
One thing that's great about you is you've played pretty much all of the roles, right? And to a varying degree of success. So my question for you is which role are you most comfortable on? Like what pack, what role are you most comfortable on?
That I'm most comfortable in?
Yeah.
Playing, well, basically, like, so where I perform the best in is when I'm playing top pack, right?
Okay.
I have the ability to be able to, control the game, to move the game, to better manage targets and to help the team. And it gives me a little bit more control over how I can influence that game, right? I gotten like over the years, maybe at the beginning, right, it was a matter of, okay, get the top pack score as high as you can, right? Yeah. But what I've kind of learned over time is that like it's not about scoring as high as you can. It's being able to kind of shepherd all of your opposing players into an area where they are vulnerable, right? Okay. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you have a pack that will allow you to be able to to move the game the way that you want it to move, right? And I could tell you like the one time that really sticks out where I was able to do that effectively was we had a Mississauga tournament. We played.
I knew you were going to say that.
We played the Mississauga tournament. We played. Psycho was on our team.
Yep.
Echo, Adam, and I don't know if I had like the best packs or whatnot. Or, it's just the packs that I was playing, worked to my strengths, and it allowed me to be able to, move and control the games like from prelims all the way into finals, in the way that, in a way that I haven't been able to do before.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't a matter of, okay, I don't think I came out top in every game, but I was able to I was able to herd, the opposing players like into parts of that maze that that exposed them to my teammates, and that's where I kind of feel most comfortable, and now kind of knowing the game that I know, like that, now knowing how to play the game and being able to manage targets and to be able to control it the way that I that I've kind of developed, like I've experienced over time, has allowed me to be able to influence the outcomes of those games in the way that I was able to do it in Mississauga.
Okay. Yeah, I remember we played you guys in the finals, and you were pretty much top of your team like every single game. It was disgusting. Yeah. What do you consider? You've won an insane amount of tournaments. What do you consider to be your proudest win? I want one NAC and one anything else.
I think for NAC, well, my proudest win was I think it was in 2010 when we won it in Hoffman. Again, it wasn't just for me. It was like I performed really well that tournament, but I think it was just more of having the opportunity to be able to get the win for the Echoes, the like the new guys that that they've been working so hard for many years, kind of been in our shadow to finally get them that win. I felt it was a proud for me, but also proud for I was more proud for those guys. And Adam, he would say the same thing. I'm pretty sure. Like it was a really great accomplishment to be able to take these guys, from like B team caliber type of play to winning a national tournament against really tough competition. It was at that time, and to be able to do that, was that sticks out in my head like the most out of all the NAC wins that I've had. In terms of like my proudest moment, like as a side tournament, I think it would be for myself. I think it would be IEG Mississauga 2001. Okay. So that was the first tournament that I think Rob Frostbite had put that tournament together. It was conceptualized it, and I think the idea of that tournament was basically like an Ironman elimination type of tournament where you didn't have a score monitor. It was 6 Ironman frantic games. And basically after each Ironman, players would be kind of eliminated based on the lowest score, but they wouldn't tell you. So you continue to play it out. Right. And then you'd be told like who the top 6 players or top 5 players would be going into the final elimination. So the final elimination was a 99-minute, 99 live kind of elimination game. This is after playing 6 Ironman games.
It's brutal.
That's 180 minutes of playing back to back to back, and now you're going to play an elimination game.
Yep.
And I remember we played that in the back like in the back area, like the back area of Mississauga on the floor, where all the pillars were and everything. Right, it was like that whole back area, and it was I think in those finals, it was me, Blair was in there, Kyle was in there, Trixie was in there.
Bad Andy.
No, I don't think Bad. I think Dark Dragon was in there.
Really? Okay.
And Echo, really? Like somehow he made it into finals. So we played it out back there, and basically everybody that was eliminated or didn't make it into the finals was in the arena. They were like basically like lined up along the ramps, kind of watching all of us, right, play it out, right. So on one side, I'm playing. And the other side, Blair's playing. So like it just kind of got separated, and there were people that just being bounced around, right? And and I don't know how long this game was. Probably more than 30 minutes. It felt like it was forever, right? It's 99 lives, right? Yeah. So it basically came down to me and Blair in the finals, and we just kind of like just duked it out until one of us got eliminated, and I ended up winning. And I was like just spent after all of that.
I can imagine.
I remember Andy coming congratulating. He's like, I don't know what I just saw, but it was like amazing. But it was like we hugged it out at the end. It was like it was the toughest tournament I've ever had to play. Back in 2001, just being able to grind it out to the. I don't even know how many lives. I probably had like 5 lives left. It was that close. We were just going back and forth, and I remember we were just going around this pillar over and over and over, I would say like I think where it was a bit of an advantage to me is because I could play with both hands.
Okay.
So I would fake one way and I would just shoot the other way, and it was the whole game was around this pillar. But it was It was something that just really stood out, like from a side tournament, like an individual play, like something like that. It was, and the people that were in there, they were all amazing players, and so it was something that I'm not going to forget. And I think that this concept's been taken now and applied overseas.
Yes.
So Trixie took that back, and now he plays that back home. Yeah. So it was something that's continued to to live on from 2001 until I guess now, right? So it's proud moment there.
Cool. It's funny, like I was expecting like a world championship or anything like that. I did not expect the IEG, but that's a cool moment.
Yeah.
So let's say you'd have to build a 5-man team from an all-time all-star team solely from the GTA. Who would be your 5-man?
From the GTA.
Yep.
From anybody, like just in their prime, or
you're the coach. Well,
I'm the
because
coach.
obviously you would be on that team,
Okay.
but you're the coach.
So Adam would be on the team for sure. Justin, Adam for sure. They've played together. They've definitely shown, their, what they can do as a team. Their successes. Adam, they're very smart players, understands the game very well, very strategic. So Adam, Justin, I would say, if we were to like any player, like if Stu was around, I'd pick Stu.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? For sure, I'd pick Stu. Just the three of them are danger.
Dominant.
Like they're just dominant alone. The three of them, like in '98, carried that team, to a regional championship, and like even into NAC. Like they know their roles. They know what they need to do. And they're very, when they're committed. Like when Stu was committed, he was a very dangerous player.
Yeah.
Even when he wasn't, then I mean, he was still really good.
Yeah.
Blair, I would have on that team.
Okay.
He's our lefty, so you need a lefty in there, right? So Blair, right? You want to have a big mix of lefty and righties.
Yep.
I don't know who else is a lefty in the GTA area. I think he's the only one.
I think so too.
So Blair would be definitely good. Like again, another smart player. So I'm picking really smart, like that they're physically able to play really well, but they understand the game. So how many? It's a 5-man team.
Yeah, that's 4.
Okay.
So you kind of picked the 4 that I was expecting. So I'm kind of curious now.
I would pick Matt.
Spam. Okay.
Yeah. So Matt is another cerebral type of player. He understands strategy. He understands. If you're talking about like a 2-team game, like if you're playing like a team that's going heads up against another team, like he definitely understands that aspect of it. He understands, and he can play that type of role. He can play that type of role that people would not have the patience to play.
Right.
Like he would, if he had to, he would sit in an area where points are in front of him, and maybe points are not in front of him for an entire game, where other people would not have that discipline. And they would lose patience, and they would leave their position. And that could be a very important position.
Yeah.
I can see Matt. Like Matt is the type of person that will lock down an area, and like he can go through a whole game and only have a small handful of targets that he can tag, but it can be the most critical area of that maze, and he will have the discipline to be able to hold it down for us. Not a lot of people could do that.
Right.
I would have difficulties doing it. I would get antsy. I would get very anxious, not having anybody around me and not doing anything and watching that time clock count down. You have to have a lot of discipline, and he's got it. He can do. He did it at WLC. He's done it. He did it at the Mississauga tournament, the most recent one that we did. Like he's done it at NACs.
Yeah.
He values the team over himself and how he performs. And he has that discipline to take on a role like that where not too many people would.
Okay, solid choice. Very competitive team there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you actually mentioned him, and I was gonna get there. Unfortunately, a few years back we lost Stu, who was an amazing human being, a really cool guy.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Stu story?
I think there's one NAC that we were at in Vegas, and a little bit of friction, right? There's a little bit of anxiety. We're going in there, and it's the team. Some of the team, they wanted to go out and party. The other team's like, no, we got a tournament to win. And I think Stu decided to go out and party that night before the tournament.
Right.
And he was out all night. We didn't see it. It wasn't until like in the morning when most of us were getting up that he finally came back from wherever he was, from wherever the hell he was. And he was just looped out of his mind. And he's like, and he just kind of plopped down on the bed and he just passed out. And I was like, Stu is like, we have to play practice games this morning. We got to, you got to get up. We got to, get ready. We got to go to the center. We got to play practice games, right? And he lifted his head up, looked at us, and he's like, practice games. And then he put his head back in, and he was out. We couldn't get him up, right? So he's like, okay, let's let him sleep, leave him here, and then we went to the center, and we played our practice games, and then it was like that morning, and then they had the captain's meeting, and the tournament was going to start, right? So right after practice games were done, captain's meeting started. I jumped in the car. I brought a couple guys. I think Justin was with me, and we went back to the hotel, and he was still there in the same position, passed out. And he's like, Stu, the tournament's starting. We got to go, right? And he looked up, and he's like, practice games, and then he passed out again, right? And we eventually had to drag him off, and it's just we got to go, and the tournament started. And what's funny is that first day, like he was like, we didn't know how he's going to perform. We thought he would pass out in the maze.
Yeah.
But he actually performed pretty well. He was like amongst the top on our team in prelims, and it was like, that's Stu, right? That's like he just has a switch. He just turns it on. The guy's been out all night. He hasn't had any sleep. Who knows like how drunk he was, and then he just plays and just dominates people. And yeah, it's just he's the type of guy that like you can't count him out. You can never count him out, right? Definitely. Like you know that he'll outperform like anyone on that team when he puts his mind to it, and he definitely did. And yeah, I miss him. Like he's a good guy. He had a good heart. Like we hung out when we went to France, and he he's a really, really nice guy, and it's unfortunate that he's gone, and we miss him. And it was just too soon. But I'm glad I had the opportunity to get to know him. Somehow he was at my wedding, and it was in 2006 when I first got to that. So he must have had an impact on me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But yeah, he's definitely a good guy. We're gonna miss him.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this. Who's a player that you've never played a tournament with that you always wish you could? And you've played with a shit ton of players.
I don't think there's. I've played with a lot of players out there. I can't think of anybody that I haven't played with, to be honest.
That could be your answer, because you have played with everybody, right?
Yeah, like whether if they've been on NAC teams, like pretty much everybody in the GTA I played with. I played with Lewis.
Yes.
Up until recently, Lewis was the only person I hadn't played with, and I played with him. I played with Drew. Like we talk about in the States, I played with pretty much everybody, like the entire Phoenix team. I haven't played with Denver.
Okay.
I'd love to. I've never played with Knock.
Okay.
Right? And he's one guy that I've never been able to figure out, even from back in '99, because he wasn't like he wasn't flashy in how he played. He didn't move incredibly fast. Right. He was just super accurate, and the way that he played, it wouldn't look like this guy is going to dominate in the game. Right. So I would go to, like, for example, like even at WLC, like we would play him and he's just like shooting, like, and you think, okay, well, like there's no way. Right. And we couldn't tag him. He wouldn't go down. Right. And then he would come and win the game. Right. But he's done that since 1999. Like he's done that ever since the beginning. It's like, it was just the way that he plays is such that, the outcome is not what you expect. Right. And I'd love to kind of get into his head and what do you do? Like, how do you do this? Yeah. Right. And there's a saying that, like, especially with the new equipment, right. And I've kind of tested it out and it's actually true. It's apparently the less you move, the better you perform.
Okay.
Because you're just more accurate. Like, if you're shooting, eventually their laser, their sensor is going to come into your line of sight and you're just going to tag them. Right. So just focus on the target that you want to go after, and then just don't move as much, right? And just, and just small jerks. You don't have to go crazy, not with the new types of packs, right? And I found like in Whitby, they have the newer packs there, is that, I've and even in San Jose to a certain extent, that if you kind of angle yourself to not expose all of your targets, and if you're just shooting and you just kind of move subtly, you tend to tag people a lot easier. Whether because maybe your accuracy is a little bit better, or they just move their laser right into your line of sight, and they just end up getting themselves tagged.
Right.
So I think that's probably the way that he plays. And there's other people like that play like him, like Dark Dragon does the same thing.
Yes.
Where he doesn't move. He just doesn't move. Anybody comes out with monstrous scores.
Super accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to. Yeah. And I played with Dark Dragon, right? And so, but Nock would be somebody that I would love to have the opportunity to play with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Throwback to 2009. So this was the year that Toronto East. This was the year you sat out, and Toronto East had Conan on the team. And I don't know if you remember, but Toronto. I was a manager at Laser Quest Brampton back then. And then Toronto East would come and practice. And then you, me, Blair, Bones, Prodigy would kill them every single game. We'd be undefeated against them. And then that year they go on and lose an AC by like not that very much, by like 100 points. Yeah. So if we had brought that team to an AC, that Brampton team, would we have won an AC in 2009?
I don't know. I think we were just feeding off of Conan anytime they came to us. They came and played against us. If we had brought our team into that NAC in 2009, I probably not.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I think that we like they have this, like I was saying about Adam, like he has this other gear that he can switch in. Like he's not going to show you all his cards when you practice with him. Right. Like he'll play competitively enough to kind of keep it close. But that's not how he plays in a tournament. Like when he plays in it, like he goes from like 90 to 120. Right. And I've seen it. I've seen him play like at a different level, and he can turn it on. Right. So like what he's doing when he comes and practices with, like when we practice, like he's just trying new things. He's trying different angles, maybe even things that he will even work on perfecting when he gets into a tournament play. He's trying things that are uncomfortable for him, but he's not playing at that at that tournament level. There's been times when I practice with him when he's just switched it on, and as a cookie, okay, enough. You can't tag him, right? But then he'll just gear down, and he'll play at a reasonable level that's not going to completely demotivate you and make you overly frustrated.
Yeah.
But so when we've ever practiced with him, I'm pretty confident that it's not like that's not, they're playing at a level to try probably different things. Yeah, we may have been beating them, but they were probably not playing to all of their strengths at that given time. So yeah, like I think they would have still outperformed, in NAC and compared to if we were to go.
No doubt.
Yeah.
More of
we were going all out. We were going balls to the wall and barely squeaking wins against those guys, right? So
well, I don't think it was even close. Like we were beating them, like game in and game on. But like you said, like it's like they won that year and they dominated NAC and like almost won with Conan on the team, right? So they definitely
Conan. Yeah, if they can win with 8 people, I mean, and Conan is for definitely. I'm sure he gave them, those other teams, like 300-400 points each.
Oh, easy.
So it's just why the deduction theory would have been, actually they would have kept it close, if not at least placed a bit higher.
Yeah.
If they sat him those final games, which is crazy.
It's too funny.
Yeah.
Who would you consider to be your biggest rival as a team and one player? One team, one player.
So biggest rival as a team, so many throughout the years, right? Like which team against which team. So it depends on the team that I was playing with.
Right.
Like if it was in Phoenix, our biggest rival was basically, it was like Houston.
Not even Denver?
Not even Denver.
Okay.
Denver wasn't even, it was more Houston than anything else. Like, it was a huge rivalry against Houston. And I think a lot of that was just kind of came from the news groups, right? It was like we never really played, I don't think, heads up. But I think a lot of it was from like the previous years in '98 when Houston beat Phoenix in Knoxville, and I think that's where the rivalry kind of started, and it just continued to build from there. Houston was defending champions going into '99, so they were basically, the team to beat, right? Like Denver was the up and comer, right? But we were more focused on beating Houston, and you, I don't know if you look at the news groups, it was probably just, it was between Nate and Cherry Bomb and those guys. It was like, it was a big clash. So when I was playing on Phoenix, that was the rivalry. When I was with Brampton, the rivalry, I think it would have been more with Westland, because they're in the same region, and they had they definitely had something to prove, and it was like playing against Westland, it was like just back to back, right? It was, we would always see them in the finals, and it was just one year we'd win, one year they'd win. We're always working on kind of bettering ourselves, and it was a friendly rivalry. Like in the North, it was very friendly. In the South, it was not as friendly. Or in the West, when I was in Phoenix. But with Westland, it was a friendly rivalry, and I think over the years, both of our teams got better as a result of that rivalry. And then obviously with Toronto, it was NRH.
Yes.
So like just, and that at first it was not so friendly, but then, after about a year or two, it became more of a respectful type of rivalry. And we kind of knew it's like, we'll see you in finals next year. And I think if it wasn't for Westland, they were kind of like our Batman to our Joker kind of thing. They were our. So I mean, if it wasn't for them, I don't know if Toronto would have continued to play. They're the ones that kept us going, kept the spark alive. They're the ones that made us kind of really rethink about how we played, and wanting to find a way to get the upper hand the next year in terms of how we played and the strategy. And I think we finally kind of figured that out in 2012 with the different types of strategies that we went in with. It wasn't just kind of relying on our raw talent, but we just incorporated that with the strategy.
And what about the player?
I think that outside of my own center or within my own center.
It could be anyone. Could be anyone.
Well, so it's just, again, friendly rivalry would have been throughout the years. In the early years, it would have been like with Blair, right? Like there was always this, this competition of who could be on, who's the best, who's on top, and it wasn't so friendly at first, but then it became, a respectful type of rivalry. He was like at the beginning, it was with Blair. And then the friendly, and then it turned into with me and Adam, again, friendly. Just to kind of who can assert dominance on this team, who's the better. He was always better than me. Like it got to the point where he was just consistently like better, right? But every so often we would joke around. I don't know if Adam ever kind of mentioned it in this podcast or talked about it, but there have been times where we would prank each other, like at NACs and prelims. I would be calling out his sensors. Like Adam's got weak shoulders, so that he wouldn't win that game. And I would be calling it out, and they would be going after it, and then he would call sensors on me as well. We wouldn't do that like in playoffs or finals, but I mean, it was a fun type of thing that we did just to kind of keep it less stressful. Like if you kind of go into games like 100% focused, it can tighten you up, right? Like you won't play to your potential, right? But if you're kind of going in relaxed and having fun with the focus still there, so you want to win, but kind of being jovial and just treating it as if this is a game, right? And it brings out a different type of play level within yourselves. Like you notice how teams perform really well in prelims because they're somewhat relaxed. Like it's about seeding, but then when you get into playoffs and the stress and the anxiety begins to kind of creep up, that's where you see them play at their worst, right? And this is the same team that we played in prelims that completely, like, they beat us in prelims, like, heads up. And when we see them playing in playoffs, like, they're a completely different team. It's like, what happened? Like, what happened to them? They're all tightened up. And, and I think it's just a lot of that is just, the pressure, the self pressure that they put on themselves. It becomes a mental thing too. Right. So it's just a matter of kind of going in and, when you're playing, just to kind of, relax and, enjoy it for what it is. But, Adam was definitely, a rival of mine for many, many years. And it was just, we just kind of fed off of each other, just to kind of, and learned off of each other. Yeah. He would be him and Blair.
All right, so that takes care of rivals. So my next question, the last question actually I have on the podcast for you is, usually at this point in the podcast, I ask my guests who their biggest role model is in Laser Quest, but usually that answer is you. So I'm going to ask it to you differently. So if you want to name a role model, we can get to that after. But what I want to know is, and this might be the hardest question I'll ask you in this podcast, who do you consider to be the best teammate that you've had?
Okay, so that's going to be tough. I've had so many great teammates over the years, in 25 years, in playing. It's hard to really kind of pick one over the other. If I had to choose one, overall, I'd have to choose Adam. He's definitely somebody that I've known the longest in Laser Quest, since 1996. And, we've played on many, many teams together, side tournaments, corporate tournaments, and, we've practiced together. And basically, like, for a short period of time, it was, him and I were the ones that were kind of like, driving, the success of the Brampton team to the point where, others had the opportunity to kind of step up. But just because of just for how well we knew each other, I know that I remember when we were playing in tournaments, and we're kind of covering in the same area, like in the same tower or whatnot. Like, we don't even talk to each other. Right. And that's, that says a lot for somebody that, two people that kind of really know each other, how each other plays and where each other's going to be going. It's one of those things where, you have a sense as to what's happening. Specifically, like when I'm in the same tower with Adam as an example, like, I'll know, like, if he's going to need help, or, because you can see, like, you can get that feeling. It's just something that you develop over time. And it's just one of those things where we kind of read off of each other. So, for example, we have this crossfire. We do this crossfire thing where, like, if he's got someone on him, right, and I'm kind of like within line of sight, I don't even have to say anything. Like, he already knows that I'm there, and he'll just let me tag the guy in the back, and vice versa. And we kind of we play off of each other, and I think that's that's probably been the result of a lot of success that we've had. Playing together in 2-mans and 3-mans. At an NAC type of tournament where we're kind of both together in a tower and just kind of shutting it down. He's been phenomenal, to play with. When he went on his hiatus, I started playing with Justin a lot. We played a lot of tournaments together. And again, like, Justin's also definitely somebody that, I've been able to, work really well with. We've won a lot of tournaments. We've lost, this almost the same amount of tournaments, but, it's at the end of the day, it's like, our chemistry has always been pretty strong. But if you're talking about, like, overall from back in 1996 all the way up until like 2020 is our last tournament that me and Adam played, is like, it's been pretty much, the same. And if not, it's become even stronger, the way that we play in the maze and kind of know each other and what we're doing.
Okay, perfect. And what about role model?
For role models, like I didn't have a lot of role models when I first started playing. I think, like, if I were to say, like, a player that helped kind of get me started, I would say Spotlight. He's the one that got me playing the game. He showed me some, basic things, to kind of, get me off the ground. And I kind of just took it from there. I think from other role models that I had were not actual players; they were actually like the management staff at the Brampton Center. So Dave was one that I was one person. Like it got to so for example, like when I first started playing as a member there at Brampton, it was frustrating, right? To the point where you're getting beat down all the time, and you're like, what do I do? How do I get better, right? And I remember like Dave pulling me aside, and he's just saying, this is the best way to kind of overcome this is to look at what it is that you could do to to better yourself, like in terms of where are you getting tagged the most. So he like really helped me to understand the game, and he was a general manager. Right. Yeah. He didn't even play, but he understood like the concept. Right. And so, I mean, he was one that really helped me to kind of really get a good understanding as to, where my weaknesses were, and really helped me to self-reflect. And, and he was the type of, like, he didn't have to do that. Right. And, talking about like, managers at centers nowadays that don't really care about members. Like he definitely cared. Right. And for me, that was like brand new coming into there. Like he took the time to teach me and help me to understand, how to kind of overcome adversity when I'm playing in games and just getting, and getting beat down like crazy. And eventually, like it helped me to better understand what it is that I needed to do to become better, as a player. Right. And, there's another manager there, Wade, he also was very, very supportive, for me, both in my professional career as well as playing laser tag. So I mean, he got me, he had a lot of advice, from a leadership standpoint, which is something that we really kind of needed in Brampton as a team to take us to the next level as a leader. So I was able to kind of pick up a lot from Wade, and how to inspire, to motivate, to lead by example, and that dovetailed right into my professional career now. I'm in a leadership role professionally, and a lot of those, a lot of that guidance, a lot of that, a lot of those tips and tricks were, because of Wade and Dave. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting take. Sir, this is all the questions that I had for you. 4 hours later, we're almost
shouldn't have been this long.
Yeah. But you just start talking about laser quest, and like you said, like I said at the beginning, we kind of went over highlights of your career because there is just so much to talk about. We could do 10 hours of this easy. No questions asked. But yeah, in closing, I want to thank you very much for taking the time, for being such a stand-up guy, and like what everybody in the community should strive to be as a player, as a competitor, as a sportsman, as a person. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Hopefully, like people will watch it, enjoy it, and get to, everybody in the community will know who Corwin is. But I'm sure people are going to appreciate listening to you reminisce over those stories. In closing, is there anything you want to say to the community? I will leave you the final words, basically.
Final words.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first I want to thank you, Alex and Lewis, really, to help in just creating this platform for us to be able to tell our stories. I think that it's a great thing that you're doing. It's helping. It's definitely going to help the community, better understand, who we are as players and where we've come from, and hopefully it's something that they'll be able to take something from that and apply it for themselves. Heartfelt thank you, to everybody that I've had the opportunity to play with, as well as to play against, to learn from, to teach, and to hopefully inspire. Although I didn't have much of a voice in the community, I hope that it created some type of imprint to the community for people to become better versions of themselves. Whether if it's fitness, whether if it's the way that I played, whether if it's kind of my sportsmanship. I think that there are people out there that have taken something from that. I want to thank the community for taking the time to listen to this 4-hour podcast. It shouldn't have gone that long. And then just everyone's dedication in keeping this game alive, right? It's hard. It's hard to keep this thing going for so many years. To kind of like echo what Lewis kind of mentioned at the beginning, it's like, yeah, like, the world is facing unprecedented times right now with COVID-19 and, isolation, some places more so than others. It's changed the way that we view society and social interaction. It's going to change it, going forward. I don't know how Laser Quest is going to be once all of this is open, we open up again. Like, I think you mentioned that Ohio's opened up laser tag again. So let's see how they do it. At least in the near future, and but even with that, and just all of the the protests that are going on, it's like it's tough times, right? You wouldn't have expected that in 2020, right? And hopefully, we'll be able to overcome this and get to a better place. Just kind of seeing all the events that are taking place as it relates to racism, and it's happening. It's affecting everyone. It's rippling all across the world. The one thing that I would say to everybody is just stay strong, support each other. We'll get through this. We'll get through this. There is light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a train, and we'll get through this. And best wishes to everybody that's out there. If you're directly affected by anything that's going on, just stay positive. I think once this is all done, we'll get out stronger than ever.
Very wise words. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your kind words.
Awesome.
And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, guys.